Yep, we're aware of that, Siri. Well, welcome back to another episode of Waking the People with your host, Sir Chad Everett Brochures, and I am joined with a special guest today. She goes by Gigi. She goes by Justine. She's also a lookalike for a young Sigourney Weaver. So, with that, I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself, and we'll dig into our subject. So, how would you like to introduce yourself, Miss Justine?
Hi, I am Justine. I am a graphic designer and I work in web design and a few other things like that. I also do some social media management. I have a good time doing those things, but I dabble in politics because I'm a little crazy. So,
Yeah. Well, I will say this. Justine is in her mid-20s.
yeah.
Okay. And she, in the very few moments that we've spent together, where we actually first met, introduced me to several terms because I'm newer to waking up to politics. And Justine's like, oh, yeah, that's populism. I'm like, okay, all right. And then I looked into it further and I'm like, son of a bitch, how do I not know this stuff? I'm doing a podcast now for 7+ months. And, it's okay. So,
Yes, yeah. I'm a populist, definitely. I believe that government should be small, and I think that it should be for the people, by the people. And I think that what we're living in right now is more of a technocracy than anything else, run by oligarchs that are self-proclaimed oligarchs and not elected ones.
yeah, I don't disagree with any of that at all. The only thing is we don't actually have a talking head for Google,
Right.
but or Alphabet,
Yes.
right? The
Well, we
parent company.
do, technically.
Oh, who do?
Technically, we have CEOs that we can pin blame on, but they're
Yeah,
easily shuffleable, you know what I mean?
yeah. But what I mean by that is that we don't have somebody like Mark Zuckerberg. We
Mm-hmm.
know who that is, and we know he
Right.
owns Facebook, right? We know who Jack Dorsey is, and we know he owns Twitter, and
Mm-hmm.
we can pinpoint it, and like they are the business, right? Like
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg is Facebook, right? And that's what I mean by like, Google doesn't have like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
say, hey, so they don't have the same kind of limelight
They
they
don't have
do.
a Bezos.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's yeah, and that's another huge conversation piece too. But yeah, Bezos and people like I'm regularly surprised that people aren't aware of the things that he owns,
Oh
like the
yeah.
Washington Post. How many
Yep.
people don't know that? I'm like, that's his political views,
Well,
and
like the 7 companies or whatever, that like whole chart, you've seen that before, right?
no, I haven't. Oh, what do
All
you mean the
right.
seven companies that own everything?
Yeah, the 7 companies that own everything, and you've got like Disney with this like umbrella of media companies, and it's like offshoots of like soda brands and candy, and they're like selling like feminine hygiene products to like people in
With the
poor
Mickey face?
countries. Yeah, like the Nestle water. Nestle water. I know this is kind of a tangent, but like Nestle water is like taking like valuable resources and water from these like people and then packaging it and reselling it as like this crap water that they're
Yep.
like reselling to people. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, they own Zephyr Hills. They own, I
Yep.
believe it's Alpine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different companies that Nestle owns, and
Yeah,
their business practices is profit over care. They care more about their profit than they do about the societies and these
absolutely.
the communities that they produce their wealth out of.
Yeah, and they're upheaving to do so.
Yeah, yeah. Well, try not to vomit too much, just in case.
Right.
I do want to address the elephant in the room for the moment for the some of our viewers. Joshua's workload got a little heavy this week, so he's not going to be able to join us for this particular episode. But I knew that I was going to bring some character that really helps shine like Joshua does and helps brighten the dimness that I bring to this. But so with
I'm
that,
actually Joshua. It's actually me in a wig.
yeah, we've become very progressive lately.
Don't dead name me anymore.
I'm gonna have to start using that. I just recently found out. Okay, so the world knows I'm 41, going on 42. So I'm not into the trendy stuff. People are like, hey, have you ever seen the Kardashians? I'm like, you know, I believe you get your ass kicked for saying something like that and where I grew up. So, it's like, no, No, so I don't keep up with all that, but I am learning some of the things that I think the things that are really important to learn is
Yeah.
what actually carries weight in the lingo, not just
Mhm.
the change of verbiage so that I can seem hip or cool, but understand the weight of the definitions that go with it. So dead
Yeah.
naming is not, and for people that don't know, I somewhat recently found out what dead naming is. Justine can actually kind of give us a little bit more about it, but it is worth understanding because parents are hearing this coming from their kids. They're
Mhm.
hearing this in society and they're wondering, how do I keep up with this? It's like a subculture of language
Right.
that creates a different communication system that's right in front of these people that are like the house, the household head of household people, the
Right.
homeowner, the person that's paying for the college for their kid, or like that. And then there's this subculture of language going on that has this entire construct of thinking that is brushed off typically, almost like this encrypted conversation. And I don't think it
Yeah.
starts intentionally that way, but it kind of executes that way.
No, it's
So,
crazy. It's like it seems like a generational gap, but I think it's like it goes further than that because it's more of like a cultural gap, and it's like a cultural divide that people are like sitting in. And a lot of these kids are getting these terms from like TikTok and that kind of stuff, which is in and of itself a cesspool culture.
oh, it
um,
absolutely is.
it's crazy. I mean, the amount of people who are and I don't use this lightly because I think mental illness is something that is very important and it's something that needs to be addressed. And I think everybody, has to some degree some sort of internal struggle that they're dealing with. But the amount of people that are faking mental illnesses just for attention, just because they're like, I want to seem different, I want to seem interesting. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to these people. Who are faking terrible to live with conditions like dissociative identity disorder, that
Mhm.
where you like have alters and that kind of stuff. People who are faking that because they saw a TV show and they're like, you know what, I want to get this like quirky personality, I want to be cool and that kind of stuff. So it definitely comes down to like a cultural divide, I think,
Yeah,
not just a generational one.
I agree completely with that, because when somebody has a scapegoat to bad behavior, it
Hmm.
is the write-off. You
Oh yeah.
can't, you identify with the illness, you identify with the condition and
Right.
use it as a a blockade
Like
or
a
a
vice.
justification
Yeah.
to, if you say something about me, you're saying something about this. And if you're
Hmm.
saying something about this, you're a bad person. You're
You're
an
a
evil.
bigot.
Yeah, right. You're into this category of things that are just the immediate. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a misogynist, you're everything that just needs to be just wiped off the planet, right? Like,
Right.
so it's creating this very hyperbolic language to excessive and extreme behavior.
Right.
So when people identify with a particular condition, it starts to consume the personality and they change into something different.
Well, it's tribalism. It really is. It's wanting to belong to a group, wanting to be a part of a group, wanting to seem like you have other like-minded individuals who are like you, and where people like us can find it through conversation and being like, oh, this issue, I also have an issue with this. You know what I mean? there
Right.
are there are people who don't, and who don't have, and I hate saying, I don't want to sound mean, but don't have an interesting enough personality to kind of formulate those relationships with other people, so they in turn make something up, or they find something niche to like make them feel like they belong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do see that it becomes a tribal behavior, but I
Mhm.
also see it really, if you boil it down, it'll come up to people that are responsible and people that will not be responsible.
Right.
And the ones that are responsible are the ones that get chastised because they fall into the successful people. They fall into
Yeah.
the ones that must have cheated. We see it on the higher level, right? People that have been responsible for decades, people that have had families of responsibility, where they're
Hmm.
generationally responsible and their
Right.
family is capable of creating successful businesses and amassed wealth. And then you have other people that are not as responsible,
Because they were
not
given
necessarily,
everything.
right? Or, and I would say there's a spectrum. There's people that are extremely responsible for the outcome they want to have, and there's
Yeah.
people that won't do a damn thing for the outcome they want. They just
Right.
complain they don't have that, right? I make an excuse for this, the victim mentality. I don't have to be responsible. That's your job. And then
Hmm.
there's everything in the middle of that spectrum You
Which
can have
is your
people
blue collar people.
yeah,
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, and if you want to change that world, you have to start looking at the key element.
Yeah.
The key element is not how you budget your, how you manage your budget, although that's a part of it. The key element is how you manage your responsibility.
Oh, it's
Because,
mindset, 100%.
yeah. So, and I see that, and what we have is we have this think tank concept of illness where we're like, well, it's not that, this isn't my problem. Being irresponsible is a way into mental illness.
Well, and I think in and of itself, it is a mental illness. It's an infantile type syndrome where you feel so compelled in your beliefs and you feel so, in a way, narcissistic about I'm right and there's no way that I couldn't be right. So you're obviously wrong. Like that whole ideology, which is very formulative for a lot of people on the left and a lot of people on the right too sometimes. You know what I mean? I don't think it's just a one-sided thing. I think it's a type of person that brings that sort of infantile syndrome, whereas there are people who are like, you know what, it's gonna suck to eat this apple and I really want to eat this pizza, but I'm gonna eat this apple because it's better for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's really what it is also doing is obfuscating immediate gratification for long-term.
Yes. Oh man. And internet and cell phones and all that kind of stuff has expedited that process, especially for generations who grew up not being told you need to go play outside. You have an hour on the computer a day. There's nothing else for you here. Go outside, you know?
Right. Yeah. Go and play in the woods. Go do stuff like that. Like I grew up that way.
Yeah,
But it also taught me a lot of valuable lessons, right? If I fell out of a tree, I was taught lessons on gravity, right? And then also not just that, pacing myself, strategizing my moves, managing my muscular system against gravity to elevate the position that I had in the tree. Right?
Yeah, grabbing that branch before you hit the ground.
Right. Or at least understanding because something looks solid doesn't mean it is solid. Right. And you can really take a lot of life lessons just out of climbing a tree. But most people be like, that's climbing a tree. That's stupid. I don't want to talk about it. It's like, think about the principles that you learn, because kids don't climb trees because it's just cool to do. Kids climb trees because it's exploration. It's a scientific approach to looking at the world.
It's an innate need to problem solve that's built into our DNA. And, you know, I have religious background, and I think that kind of carries a little bit why I didn't go crazy when all of my peers were going crazy. And so my parents raised me the same way, where it's like, you need to figure this out for yourself. You need to problem solve for yourself. And also while you're doing that, you need to be thinking about how your actions are affecting those around you.
Right. Yeah. I was just having a conversation earlier today with a friend. It's actually over the course of several days. And we were talking about some of the tenets and benefits of religion and some of the drawbacks, right? So it was really fascinating to go through, because I don't think my religious position is not the same as a lot of people that get into the conservative thinking. And I see significant value in it. And I think that's one of the things that the left has lost touch with, because all they focused on is what they weren't allowed to do versus what a religion brings in that gives them structure so that they can have something else that they want and the discipline necessary to achieve something. And I find that that's something that gets dismissed because, well, I got sent to my room in timeout, so therefore I hate God. It's like, yeah,
those two don't they don't coexist peacefully.
Right. You sound like a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Take your punishment, understand it. But if mom sends you to the bedroom with your tablet and you've got all your internet connections and everything else, you just start making TikTok videos.
Right.
Bane of existence.
And finding other people who got grounded to their rooms and didn't get their phones taken away, which we always got our phones taken away when we got sent to our room. So these kids were like, yeah, I'm grounded, and like recording TikTok videos. Who are your parents? Right. They seem like idiots. But that's what politics has become their religion. Yes, in seeking to lose religion, they found it within, I know you're not supposed to talk about it, the A word.
Which one?
The black clad destructo mob that runs around cities.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, you know, those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys. So like those people, even BLM became religion for some people, where you're seeing like, and I have no problem with, you know, people wanting to uplift others and to support communities, to support small businesses, but doing so on the basis of race, I don't think is conductive to society. You know what I mean?
I agree completely. What it is it's you create a different class of individual
Yes.
with a specific set of privileges. And when you create any class of individuals with privileges, people will always resent that.
Yes.
It's just the way we are. We're communal animals. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we are as a species. And when we get into, well, this person has a special privilege. Well, what's fascinating is once you can dehumanize somebody based off of specific traits, you start punishing the traits and associate it with the person.
Right.
And so what we
Right.
see is a lot of these people that are the, you know, the 99 percenters, right? The people that showed up there at Wall Street, they just threw on a bunch of black clothing. Not every one of them, I'm not saying all of them converted, but Tim Pool himself had talked about what he experienced when he was dealing with.
Oh yeah, no, I saw him
99%.
say that too.
Yeah, and
I saw that too.
he gets into, so but a lot of those individuals they're seeking purpose and value. And when you go off into college or you leave the nest, right, or some of these kids never even left the nest, but they're seeking purpose in life, they're not bearing a cross, right? Like religion teaches you to bear a cross. They're not bearing a cross that gives them the reward of life, so they feel like they have purpose and value, so that they're doing something meaningful. And then they start adopting other people's gripes, other people's issues. The problem with adopting somebody else's issue is that if you have not yourself lived it, you yourself have not experienced it the way that they did, and you cannot even tell if they're exaggerating because you haven't done it, and you're being taught a different perspective, and you yourself may take your own, you know, creative liberties into what they've told you and exacerbate it further because you don't want to be the person sitting in the room that nobody talks to. You want to be able to sound like you're meaningful and that you're somebody of means. So, and then before you know it, a lot of these people are just, they're trying to replace the vacuum of purpose.
Yes. Well, it wholly comes back to with what? Sorry.
With this other thing. Right, whatever it is.
It wholly comes back to the TikTok thing. People are looking for a reason to belong and a place to belong, and looking for this like existence where I would find my existence right at church, and I would find my existence in God, and I would find my existence doing things for other people, right? Because like people think Christianity is like this, oh, hate the gays, hate this, and that kind of stuff, and leave that for the Westboro Baptist people. That's fine. You know what? It's not fine, but that's their thing. The typical Christianity, as far as the Bible states, is like you're supposed to love other people, you're supposed to treat others the way that you want to be treated, and not even that, but treat them better than the way that you want to be treated. And so when you're living your life to solely fill a purpose for you, and you're not living your life to fill a purpose and help others and have that be your purpose, you're ultimately going to end up angry, disgruntled. You're going to end up having like clashes of self, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So
it creates more self-destructive behavior. And what if you do venture over, to me, TikTok is like the dumpster fire of Twitter with video. And it's you can get some valuable things out of Twitter. There are a lot of journalists that go there and they do break stories there. And then there's the other side, which is just nothing but the
vitriol
keyboard warrior. The disgust of, what are you going to do about it? I can type better than you, or I'm not listening to you, but I have no repercussions to what I'm saying because you're not physically present to do something about it. And it creates this pattern of behavior to another human being that is not left at the computer. Because you can see how people overreact in public, especially when you catch videos of somebody that just snaps. It's like
meltdowns.
They go directly in to the middle of an argument with somebody else that wasn't even present for that argument. Like, will you believe this? So therefore, and it's like straw manning the shit out of everybody around them.
Yes. So
the other
100%.
The other thing that I've noticed with TikTok is there is a lot of people on there with declaration videos. Like videos like, you will call me by my pronouns.
Oh,
you don't.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? But when they say it, they don't always say if you don't. They say, you will call me by my pronouns. Well, the consequence of not calling you by your pronouns is you remove yourself from my life.
Yeah, what are you
I'm
gonna
okay
do?
with
Hit
that.
me?
Yeah, exactly. You will do. Okay, well, fantastic. The only consequence that you currently have is that we don't build a relationship of any
Right.
sort. The
Yeah.
relationship would be one of being guarded and distant, and you would not share of my resources because I have no common reason to share my resources with you, whatever
No.
those resources may be, money, influence, you know, my physical abilities to do something, whatever it may be. I'm removing those resources from somebody who makes declarations like that
Yeah.
because they come across as being volatile, bossy without, it's an entitled bossiness
Oh,
without credibility or life experience to give dedication for that type of vitriol that they'll spit at you.
yes.
So anyway, I don't want to stay on the TikTok stuff too long,
No,
but
no, yeah.
if you do venture over there, be prepared because there is a lot of stuff on that app. And by the way, so the people know, one of the reasons why President Donald Trump had stated that he was banning TikTok from the United States is because TikTok was doing data collection for China at the time
Yes.
because China
Yes.
owned the app.
What do you mean at the time? They still own it. They're
They
still
because I
doing
heard Bill
it.
Gates
Oh,
bought it.
100.
Yeah, Microsoft bought it, but then I was going to say
You think
this.
that you think your dad is any safer with that guy?
Oh no, well, I was going to say that business transactions are not always clean and cut and dry like Bill Gates bought it. Bill Gates
No.
could have bought licensing in the United States
Yes.
for the app, which still, when you do an agreement like that, they could build in the underwriting of it or in the
100%.
details of the agreement that they still collect all of the data they want, however they want to go about it. Plus also China violates their contracts all the time.
China violates human rights
all
the time. They violate everything. That's why I don't personally have the TikTok app. A lot of my peers think I'm crazy. A lot of them are like, oh, I know that China collects my data, but I don't really care about it. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, right. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not like plotting any coups. I'm not doing anything nuts. I'm not like suicidal or anything like that. I'm not suicidal, just in case my NSA agent's watching. But like,
use the pronouns before you say that.
Yeah, right. Well, am I still Joshua? Because if so, then they've changed a bit.
Joshua's going to call from his new job and be like, all right, well, now I'm on suspension. What did you say?
Yeah, so like I don't have the app or anything because I'm not going to just sell out like that. And I've said a lot of like negative things about China on social media. I was big on, calling them out for the Hong Kong thing, in 2019, which seems like it was like 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I don't trust it. I trust Gates as far as I can throw him and I can't even reach him. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I really have. I don't think I've ever really trusted Gates. Ever. And it's not like I've ever had like, well, I trust Gates, I'm going to leave him alone with my dogs, or my wallet's out, not like that. I don't mean that. And that's what people get caught up on, what language means to them in their circle versus what language means on a global sense. So when I say I don't trust Gates, and I'm talking about the Gates here, it's because I don't trust somebody who publicly states that we should be eating far less beef and eating what is that? Cicadas. Thank you.
Yeah.
Eating cicadas. We need to eat more bugs and reduce this. It's like, and then the next thing you know, he is the largest agricultural landowner in the country.
It's weird, isn't it?
A private landowner, right? Now, there's other things that he's doing, though. Bill Gates, the umbrella of the companies that he owns, one in particular is actually building a nuclear power plant out in, I believe it's Utah. So, yeah, what are they going to do? I mean, that may just be a financial investment.
That's just to get rid of the Mormons. It
may very well be. Right?
I'm kidding.
Yeah, they're out there with their revolvers. We've got Romney right now figuring out how the hell he can get Clinton in touch with us.
Oh, Romney.
He's like, Hillary, I'm about to make you guys a couple more friends. Can you help them out? Wink, wink.
Careful talking about the Clintons. You don't want to get schwacked.
Yeah, I don't want to suicide myself.
Don't want to get Epstein.
Yeah, right.
We so it's a little conspiracy theorist joke that my friend and I have. We think Epstein's still alive and well, chilling on some island somewhere. There's no way he died. We just personally like have this like weird little conspiracy that we're just like, no way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hell, even what was his name? Is it Glenn Wood? The attorney? Is it Glenn Wood?
Oh,
No.
you just made me forget. Linwood.
Linwood, thank you.
Yeah.
Now he came out when the heat of 2020's elections were going on, and stated that JFK is still alive, and stated that, well, he didn't directly say JFK's. I don't believe he directly said it. I think he indirectly said it. And he also, but he did directly say that he believes that Epstein is still alive. And his rationale for that is because Epstein's bank accounts are still moving.
Right.
Like, so money's still moving through his account, being spent in deposit.
I wouldn't be surprised if FBI had something to do with that. I mean, again, NSA agent, I am not suicidal, but they Lynn Wood, I followed his Telegram for a bit just because he's a nut. Like, I think he is very far down the QAnon rabbit hole, you know, and like, I'm personally think that QAnon is like it was a boomer trap. Sorry to anybody who believes in it. That's just me personally, that I thought it was a boomer trap, and Lynn Wood kind of fell down that little trap too. And so to me, there were some things that he said was, you know, I feel like okay, and then it started just getting more and more deranged as time went on. So Mike Lindell, I think, is a good source for like that kind of close connected stuff, and Sidney Powell too. I think she's pretty sound mind, you know.
Yeah, I'd say that one of the things that happens whenever it comes to when somebody sounds very radicalized is you can speak the absolute utmost complete truth, but if people have not been in that conversation, it will sound so foreign, so ridiculous, crazy, and radical that it'll sound like a conspiracy versus the truth. And right. So what I think happens is, like, some people get really far down it. And like, you can see this also with a lot of people that are incredibly intelligent. They start to become isolated. The more intelligent they are, the more informed they become, the more isolated they also become, because people don't keep up with them. And then they start shutting down specific required social interactions that keep people grounded. And the further they get away from it, it's a fault to the high intelligence, that a lot of those individuals stop interacting with average or common people that have more of the general base of intelligence. And then you formulate things like Mensa, right, where you've got these uber intelligent people, but they're incredibly socially awkward. Now, not every one of them, I'm not saying that. And again, this is another reason why I say, when you talk about like specific language and truths, is I'm not saying in absolute every person in Mensa is a socially awkward person.
Right.
I personally know several, I know quite a few people that are, you know, card carrying members, if you will, of Mensa. And the majority of them do have some specific social cues that seem to either be missing or undeveloped or underdeveloped. So, but
well, you spend so much time developing your IQ, you tend to lose a little EQ in the process, you know?
Right. Yes. So, but I think all of that's valuable, because why wouldn't we want to at least start breaking down that wall? Because you'll have, like you mentioned, Sidney Powell's pretty solid, right?
Yeah.
We've got Mike Lindell. He is pretty solid. If you get past the way the media likes to frame him.
Oh, yeah.
You really listen to what he has to say with a truly, you don't even have to be a completely open mind. Just say 1/3 of your mind is open, and just say, listen. You know what? People don't agree with me. Would I want this privilege for myself? And then give yourself the privilege to get out of your own head far enough that your world gets a little bigger. Now, this is what we typically hear.
That's the biggest part, is like the whole thinking solely about me. And you see this a lot on the right, and you see this a lot. Like, one of my biggest problems with right, because I didn't vote my first time that I could vote. I didn't vote because I didn't want to vote for Trump or Hillary at the time. Neither candidate seemed like a good idea to me, and I was like, I am not ruining my first vote on one of these idiots. And you know, the second time I came around, I voted, and I had the worst, like, I was one of the kids that went around college with "down with capitalism," like on my notebooks, you know what I mean?
On your iPad?
Yeah, on my iPad, like all these kinds of things. I was like always like the kind of anti-establishment kind of person, and I still really am. But what swayed me was like, okay, one side is not necessarily better than the other, but one side's lying a heck of a lot more than the other one is. And so like for me, really what it was just finding that like middle ground. And why I feel like Lin Wood kind of lost his credibility to me was while Sidney Powell and while Mike Lindell, while they were all saying all these different things, they were also giving their proof. Like they were like, it might have been like little nibble, you know, but they were still giving it out. And meanwhile, Lin Wood's out like on a cow field throwing tangent spears at people, and then no proof whatsoever comes. It felt like it sometimes. And so I just like, I kind of like would run things by my other friend who is like very political and follows these kinds of things. And he's like way further down the rabbit hole than I ever could like manage going. And so like when I was talking to him about it, and I was like, has Lin Wood, has he gone off the deep end a little? And he's like, it seems like it.
And he could very well redeem himself if he started providing more of the evidence of what he's speaking from. But he's also, his livelihood's challenged, right? They're working on trying to disbar him from the legal system south in Georgia. He's been made out to be a quack, right?
His own kids won't talk to him.
Right. If you get alienated by your family.
And that's that's like what you're talking about with the Mensa people. It's like that being so isolated that you've got nothing else to do. Yeah.
And then you start to understand. Sometimes you'll grab ideas that justify why you are where you are. And then you start ruminating on those ideas. And what happens is we mentally occupy the idea long enough that it starts to settle in. And
it festers.
Where it can settle in, but you start creating defense mechanisms for the idea at that point. And then once the idea starts to create defense mechanisms, it starts to assume your character, or you're assuming into it, right? And then before you know it, it changes you, and it's the justification for why people aren't. And then it's then like the movie A Beautiful Mind, right? And with that is like the ideas started to get so much growth that they became the thing that he had to justify and defend, instead of something that just blows through your mind and you're like, oh, that's neat. Or, now it becomes, you son of a bitch. So I'm coming after you. Right. And it's like, it becomes the thing that you defend. And that's what the majority of things are, is that we are just like these organic systems that have different, operating systems that we work with, but it's not Linux, it's not Microsoft, it's not Apple, there's so many more than that for the way that human beings be, because we have our self-interest built into it.
I think a good phrase to live by, and one that I kind of like try to live by, is you can ride an idea, but you should never ruminate in one. Because as soon as you start to just sit there and let it like soak you in, that's when you lose touch on all the other things. And if you're writing an idea, you're brushing past all the other things in your mind. You're like, oh yeah, that. But if you're ruminating in it, you're like trapped with this idea inside of this like mental room where the only thing you see is the four walls of this idea. And so you have to get out of that box in order to grow. I mean, really, it's what it comes down to, is just growth. And people tend to think that they know everything.
Well, we have a habit of also putting on the lens of the ideas. We see the world through it. And every interaction, once you've allowed something like that to seed into who you are, and you start seeing the world through reflection or through the lens of that, every interaction you have, you're creating the event that you're having, the interactions that you're having, you're creating that through the perspective with the behaviors that come with that idea, not free of the idea, and then leaving an untainted experience. Now you're tainting the experience with whatever.
Every single one.
Yeah. And then the longer you sit in it, the more you construct a reality with it. And you create a reality with those ideas, it changes who you are now at a core level. So, and I see this a lot as an example, and then we'll move on because we had all kinds of wonderful things to talk about. But as an example, I was talking to a good friend of mine that smokes a extraordinary amount of marijuana, like a daily basis. He had actually shared with me that he had smoked every day for more than 2 years. No, every day. And I'm like, holy crap, your weed dealer must first.
Yeah. Wow.
Secondly, it's like, and then he went on he kind of detoxified a bit. And while he's detoxifying, he realized, he goes, I'm incredibly agitated about things. I'm just, things seem harder to do now. And I was like, well, one of the reasons for that is when you're in that altered state, the longer you're in that altered state, the more reality you create in that altered state. And every interaction you've had, every work experience or interaction you've had, client relationship, school, personal relationships, all become,
Hazy.
What's that? Oh, well, not just,
it becomes hazy.
well, I wouldn't say necessarily hazy with this. I say actually with this is, and a lot of times that is like what some people do if they're not common, like a daily smoker. Because I hear this from quite a few people that I know that are daily smokers and have been this way.
Well, I was. Yeah.
Were you? Okay.
In college, yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, that's the philosopher's drug, right?
Right. I think so.
But every time he had a challenge, like let's say he had just as an example, not this is a real one, but let's say the water bill was late. Get on the phone to talk to the water company while you're high. You're experiencing it through that and coming up with ways of making yourself more successful, dealing with being on the phone with a water company under the influence of marijuana. Before you know it, your reality is structured in that. And as soon as it's removed, now you have to come up with new ways, or you have to refresh the way minus the drug. So, and you have to reconstruct your reality. So it's kind of like retarding your development for 2 years, because you have not been in a sober state dealing with the world for 2 years. And then now you're having to deal with it again. I'm like, just continue on if you choose that you don't want to smoke on a regular basis, and rebuild your reality so you have the tools, the capacity to deal with the different experiences in life without needing to be high to do it. But I think that's the case for a lot of people that fall in the addict category, although I'm not calling this person an addict. But if you do on a daily basis, you may not be a chemical dependent addict, but you're a situationally experienced addict.
Yes. And a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I know, because like I said, I did it in college and I did it every day. And I was not like, so I, full disclosure, medically medicated now. So like I legally medicated now, which I went through the proper channels to do that. I am not by any means illegally doing it. And now it's just because I have back problems and acute anxiety, like in certain social situations. It also helps me not drink. Because if I take a little dropper and I'm just like feeling an elevated sense of self, and I'm less likely to consume alcohol when I like go out with friends and stuff like that. And it's not that I ever really had a drinking problem. I just, it's better for me to not.
Yeah.
But like smoking and stuff, you do it every day and you get into this state of mind where you're like, in order to go to school, I have to smoke. And in order to go to work, I have to smoke. And it doesn't start like that. It starts with like sitting on a couch in a living room and somebody being like, you ever hit a joint before? And you're like, no, but I'd love to try it. And you try it and you're like, you know what? I don't have to deal with my problems as much as I do when I'm not high. You know what I mean? Or my problems don't seem as big because I'm busy thinking about how to solve world hunger over here. And like that, like all these, like, you know what I mean? And so for me, it was kind of coming to the realization, I just stopped doing the crazy things that I was doing in college. I stopped listening to the people that I was listening to. I stopped hanging out with the types of people I was hanging out with. My husband is not a drug user. Like he's just not at all. He doesn't really care for it. He drinks and doesn't drink excessively, and that's about it. And so being in that situation where it was taboo and it wasn't really as accepted, I sort of was like, oh, well, maybe this is a weird thing to do. Like, because I've talked to people now that are like, oh, I've never even tried a joint. I'm like, you've never tried a joint? What do you mean? I thought everybody did this. That's what my friends in college told me. Everybody did it.
Well, come sit in my car and I'm going to talk to you about it for a little bit. Oh, what am I lighting up? Nothing at all. It's not going to affect you much, but
right.
Help me and help explain it. And before you know it.
Well, and what's crazy too is when I stopped smoking all the time, when I just cut it out, and like now I like will have my like little droppers and teeny amounts, you know what I mean, every now and then. When I stopped doing all that, my worldview changed. It was absolutely different. Instead of down with capitalism, it was like, okay, but what is there else? You know what I mean? And like my friend circle started changing. So I think that probably had something to do with it too. But I was also looking at things in a much less, and that's why I said hazy, is because that was my experience. Everything went from being this just like, you know, objective to being very subjective. And it's like, okay, no, there are a lot of black and white issues in the world. Nothing is really a gray area, you know?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I personally do. I enjoy exploring those kind of conversations because it does enlighten people beyond, you know, okay, well, this is all that exists. You know, like, especially whenever you get into, if you start talking to people that are in the suicidal state, a lot of times people in a suicidal state feel like they've backed into such a corner that there is no escape. And they feel very alone. They don't feel like the world really has a lot of meaning or value anymore. And it's better to just leave it than it is to deal with it. And something like this, where you shift your reality, like you said, you were really concerned about like all these things. And whenever you smoke, you're like, now you're considering like world hunger issues, and you're thinking about bigger problems that are not something that you yourself are going to be able to change at the moment, but it's giving your mind something to work on, and it gives more sense of purpose.
Giving you something to think about outside of your personal issues.
Ooh, I like it. Well, although I do like this conversation, for time's sake, so I honor you a bit more as well, and also we don't do a PSA on suicide prevention.
Or dare.
Right? You remember the old commercials? What came to mind when you're like, hey, you're sitting on a couch and someone's like, you ever smoked a joint? You're like, no. You like to? Sure. What came to mind is after the first hit, you remember the commercials back in the day, and the girl looks like she's all deflated and like just a suit of a human being laying sprawling out over the couch.
They used to have a cop and a cop and then a guy in a lion costume come to our schools and pass out like pamphlets.
Like, really? You guys, like, you're mascotting it. You're making us more interested.
I think it made some kids druggies, honestly.
It's like in the little pamphlets, there's like a sample, and they're like, don't do this ever.
Yeah, there's like, here's a little bump of cocaine, just so you know what it smells like.
A little bit of powder in your life. You want to go to Aspen? We don't need to leave Florida. Fresh powder on the slopes, baby.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, all right. For time's sake, and again, also you did a lot of wonderful research prior to the show, and the bigger reason for this particular episode, especially for what you'd suggested that you want to talk about, I am incredibly excited to talk about it. And if you don't mind, what we can do with this particular approach is, if you want to go through and we just kind of have dialogue about it, and then I'll throw in some of the stuff that I've noticed over the last week that have also just really grinded my gears, although I'm not taking that from Family Guy, so please don't sue me. We're
gonna get copy striked
this episode.
Yeah, this whole thing's just gonna get demonetized.
Yeah, they're just gonna sit there and look at you and I moving around, but no
audio. It's fine.
Yeah, they're like,
what a weird dance.
So if you want to just take it however you want to go with that, and then we'll just kind of, because like when Joshua talks about crypto or other subjects, I don't like, that's his world and he's educating me. And that's what I like about Waking the People is I definitely don't know everything. I'm far from it. If anything, I'm kind of a dullard. So I love being educated. Teach me.
Yeah. I mean, I am not by any means an expert, just so your viewers know. I am like a 20-something with a computer and half a brain. So
and not using all their time on TikTok.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually working at work, surprisingly. Or working on this. I know, right? So I don't know. I did want to point out this like interesting thing that I found, and I had actually heard from Tim Pool himself, and I was like, oh, that's crazy interesting. It was the thing about the secession thing. If you don't mind me just jumping into that.
Go right in it. Whatever. So the secession, so that people understand what we're talking about, because some people are waking up, they've never heard the term.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, and then there's other people that are like, hell yeah. And they've got their, like, they've got the bookmarks. They've got the footnotes.
They've got like they've got everything in the Constitution like tabulate. I have my grandmother got me, because she knows I'm a nut. She got me this big teeny tiny pocket-sized Constitution.
Oh yes, I like your grandmother. I'm a
She's
constitutionalist. I like her.
yeah. So yeah, so like secession is basically balkanizing the United States and breaking it into 5 separate parts. So you've got the Pacific region, the mountain region, which is like the Dakotas that way. You got Heartland, which is like the Midwest kind of area. So your flyover states, as the Democratic Party likes to so nicely refer to them. I have family from Indiana, so they always get a kick out of that.
That's actually where my family comes from.
Yeah, really?
Evansville. Yep.
No way. How have we never talked? Mine's from Fort Wayne. So.
Oh, so we got a little bit of tribalism here.
Yeah, a little bit. We're all Hoosiers at heart, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And then the Northeast and the South. So you've got those 5 regions mainly. And they pulled people from those regions just to kind of see like what people were thinking, who was like kind of for the side of it. I think even Biden had mentioned something about, secession people like wanting in secession and that kind of stuff. I know, I just blanked on his name, Fox News, Tucker Carlson has talked about it before. Fox talks about it a decent amount, I feel like. But yeah, so basically in the Pacific, there's like a chart here, and I don't know if you want to link it at some point, but in the Pacific, 47% of Democrats, 27% of Republicans, but 47% of Democrats want to secede. In the mountain regions, it's 43% of Republicans, 38% of independents that want to secede. And in California, like the Pacific region, independents are 33%. So like with independents and Democrats together, I mean, that's a pretty big number of people that are like trying to get out of there. The heartland, the flyover states, 43% of independents want to get out of there. And I think that it's interesting that 43% of independents are just like, you know what, the Republicans suck, the Democrats suck, we just want to grow corn.
Yeah. Well, and now, so for clarity too, it's when you say 43%, that's 43% of 100 registered independents. Right? Yes. So to give everybody a better idea, you don't by chance know how many of those individuals overall, because I would imagine that the heartland states are going to be more Republican because they're rural America, which is predominantly more Republican.
So it was actually 34% of Republicans that wanted to go. I'm not exactly sure what the polling size was. I think it was at least 1,000 people. I'd have to go back through and like look at the specifics on it. But yeah, so I mean, even with just independents and Republicans together, like that's 77% of the population in the Heartland area. Like they're like, yes, get us out of here. We'll take the lakes and we're going home. And then you've got the South, which is huge Republican. I mean, that's where I'm from, is good old South, Louisiana. Louisiana. So Republicans are 66% want to secede. Independents were 50%. So like the South is like, get us out of here. I mean, that includes Texas too. And Texas is already like, look, we have the credence to govern ourselves. We even have our own dollar still, I'm pretty sure, in a vault somewhere. So we're out.
We're ready to print. Yeah. We'll
right.
Get it back.
Yeah.
We don't need to go no damn crypto either. All right.
No, yeah.
Cow horns
it's gold. It's silver. I'll trade you a chicken.
And lead.
Yes, bullets, absolutely. My parents just moved there, and one of my dad's reasons was because in Texas they're not going to take your guns away.
Right. Well, if they were from Austin, Texas, that'd be a different story. But no,
they're not. They're like BFE, Texas. So
yeah,
they're out in the boonies.
40 acres and a mule.
Yeah, but then the Northeast was 39% of Democrats and 35% of independents. Only 26% of Republicans wanted to secede. So I think what the majority takeaway was the YouGov survey found that 66% of Republicans in the South wanted to secede, right? So really that group of people isn't the driving force behind it. However, if you think about, that's just a polling of like a very small group of people if you combine the entire population of the South, right? And it's not like the South hasn't seceded before.
Right.
Granted, it was like over different things and the parties were kind of flipped, but you know, that's neither here nor there. So yeah, so
it's almost exclusive, actually almost 100% Democrat back then.
People tend to forget that.
Well, that's also the big lie, like the party flipped.
Right.
The party flipped as far as the Democrats were the racist ones back then and they wanted to use. Right. And now they're the ones that want to liberate. And that's the big lie, is that the party Republicans are the racists.
Liberate.
We're to liberate by victimizing and enslaving your mind instead of making you go to the fields.
Or telling you that you can't do things and that there's people oppressing you. I have so many people who are just like, that is just blatantly false. They're like, I am like in a really great career and I'm doing really well for myself, and like,
and I know how to get a driver's license.
I
have access to Wi-Fi.
There was a guy who posted on, I think it's Instagram or something like that. He was a Black creator that I follow. And he made a video of Biden's like thing about like, they don't know how to use laptops and that kind of stuff. And he's like holding up a laptop. He's like opening it slowly, like jerking away from it. It was funny. But yeah, I saw that and I thought that was an interesting thing, that like a lot of the United States right now is like, yeah, get us out of here. We don't want to be a part of this. And I think what it shows is just how well their plan of division is going. Because instead of reaching across the aisle, people are just like, break it apart, you know? Yeah. That's crazy.
Never in my lifetime have I seen us so divided.
That's crazy.
No. And in looking back at history, it's hard to find a time when we've been this divided.
I don't think there is. I mean, if you could say that, you could argue that the Civil War. Sorry, I'm like blanking. You could argue that the Civil War was like the last time we were this divided, and I would say that not even then, because you had people in California who were like, the what? we're just mining gold.
Like they're just like, I want to take care of me. I don't care about anything else.
The Cowboys. I mean, granted, the Cowboys did have their own racial history, but I digress.
I mean, but also there is a lot. I mean, throughout history, you know, you get out of American history and you go back, you know, Jews have been enslaved a lot throughout history. You name a population that hasn't been enslaved at some point in time, and I'm going to be looking at you like an absolute bright-eyed, bushy-tailed student. I don't know of any population throughout history. And people are like, well, about Native Americans, before the colonials showed up, Native Americans took each other into slavery. Often it was part of the practice. They didn't have a treaty or work with policy with one of the other tribes around them. They were usually warring with each other. So I don't know of any Native American population that was very like, no, we're just going to be peaceful always. You know, like the Jains in Islam. The Jains are, they're the ones that are the extremists. Are you familiar with Jains?
I'm not super familiar, no.
Okay. The Jains are the only religious group of people that the more extreme they get, the less violent they are. Like, think about going around with a silk cloth. Well, think about going around with a silk cloth. The more extreme you get, you would cover water with a silk cloth to help filter out particulate that could be living microbes that you're trying not to consume so that you don't cause harm. That's the more extreme they get, the more radical they get about not causing harm to anything around them.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's like almost like Buddhism.
Well, actually, it's Buddhism. You can go to the other end, like the Taoan tigers. They're Buddhists, and they also have suicide bombers, and they're still practicing to this day.
Well, I mean, Japan, like the peaceful monks in the hills and like mountains and stuff like that kind of Buddhism.
But you could also get that in a lot of different religions. Christianity has the monks that, do no harm, and then you've got that with Buddhism. You've got that in several of them, but the Jains are the only ones that go to that extreme.
That's crazy.
It's incredibly extreme.
Do you know what region they're in?
I believe it's in India. I believe they're in India. Yeah, I'd have to double check that, but I believe that's where they're at. something that most people don't know also, during World War II, Japan was still under an emperor. So Imperial Japan.
Yeah.
And their religion was, it was Buddhism. The kamikazes were Buddhists. They were suicide bombers.
Yeah.
So anyway, not to digress us too far, but when it comes to that, there's just a lot of things that people just don't necessarily understand. So,
that actually reminded me of my friend sent me this video, and it was, I'm going to butcher this because I do not speak Japanese.
Don't worry, I do it all the time.
In Inejiro Asanuma, you know who that is?
Is it?
He was a congressional runner for Japan, but he was a communist. And what my friend sent me was actually crazy. I don't even know how it's on the internet. It's his assassination footage from 1960, and this samurai with a sword. I don't even know if this guy was actually a samurai, but he definitely had a katana. He like runs on stage and just rams it through this guy in the middle of his speech. And it was like this crazy thing because Japan saw what was going on in China and what was going on in Korea, and like how communism was spreading, how this like disease was spreading. And this guy just like runs up on stage and just shivs him right in the good one. It was crazy. Yeah, it's nuts. Sorry, that made me think. We were talking about Japan.
Wow.
Oh, that was what it was. He quoted at the end of it. He cooperated with the police and was like super polite. And then apparently 3 weeks later, the samurai guy hung himself and wrote "Long live the emperor" in kanji on the wall.
Oh, wow.
How metal is that?
Oh my God.
It's like extremely metal.
Talking about just like, it's fascinating when you like, so what I don't get is like when people talk about history being boring, it's like, how the hell is history boring?
What?
I've heard that. I've heard people like, I'm not interested in history. I'm like, how the hell? Like, I don't understand it because again, I talk about the lens of the reality that you live in. Like that's like, I'm completely into it. You talk about history, as long as it's not like my monotone science teacher from 7th grade.
Mueller.
Attention,
Yeah.
But so back to the Jains for just a moment.
Sorry.
They originated in the Himalayas.
Okay.
And then they've a sect broke off and went to Kashmir, another to West India, another to South India, another to Sri Lanka, and then another group to China. So
that's wild.
Those are places that they're at now, as far as the Jains are concerned. So.
Well, probably in China. We can't know for sure. They tend to squash anybody.
Yeah,
that is
look
it.
at the poor Uyghurs, right?
Oh, they're killing Christians over there too. Like exponentially killing Christians. One of the charities that I support, if I can plug it real quick, it's called persecution.org. And it actually, they help Christians across the globe who are like being murdered just for their religious beliefs. And you believe what you want, you know what I mean? But I don't think you should kill anybody for what they believe in. Like, I'm not going to call for people to murder any religion, at all. And I don't think that they should do the same for any as well. And there was an article in one of the magazines that I have it somewhere, that was specifically talking about the Chinese people, and like how they've been basically killing Christians. This is like one of the, you can see, it's kind of one of the magazines that I get. It's really interesting. It just talks about like the different abuses that are going around to people around the world. And they were talking about the Chinese people and how Christians there was one guy who got taken into a camp essentially and was put through, are you familiar with like MK Ultra programming in any sense?
I'm not completely ignorant of it. But I'm not by any means an expert at it.
I'm not much of an expert either. I just know, that they were doing not so nice stuff and usually at the expense of people's health. And so they were doing like that sort of like MK Ultra programming where they would like torture him and say, you are wrong, Christianity's wrong, denounce your religion. And when they wouldn't do that, he was getting like stabbed, he was getting his nails ripped out, like this like horrible, gruesome stuff. And that's all going on in China right now. And you would never hear anything about it because
Well, in my opinion, the reason why we don't hear anything about it is because we have a significant amount of financial interests that stop us from finding out about those things. The NBA
Absolutely.
prove it. The NBA, they're the ones to me that actually were like showing that that was the case. You
Yeah.
know, the World Health Organization, during the interview that they had with the woman, the reporter that asked about Taiwan, and the guy hung up on her. And then after
Yeah.
she got back in contact, he refused to acknowledge Taiwan even exists, let alone the stats they had about the CUF at the time.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, there's far more than the Uyghurs, is more than the Christians, and it's not the people of China that are doing it. It's the CCP,
No, yeah, no, not at all. And
Chinese
I think
Communist
that
Party.
that's where a lot of people, I think, get it wrong, is that they're like, oh, you're just racist against Chinese. I have nothing against Chinese people. In fact, before all this was happening, I 100% wanted to go to China. I wanted to see, like, because it is beautiful. It is beautiful. It's rich with history. The people there, you know, just regular people, you know what I mean? But the CCP is this evil, suppressive organization. And the thing with the NBA, you know, you couldn't even put free Hong Kong on the jerseys to
Yeah.
order them from the NBA. That's nuts.
Just to order them
That's
for
nuts.
yourself.
Yeah, just for
Right?
yourself.
But you could put anybody that just got shot by an officer because of their own doing, and you can
Yeah,
put their names on their jerseys, no problem. BLM
yeah.
all over the place.
I'm
You
sure
know?
you could put Epstein on the jersey if you wanted to.
I don't know. The Clintons might stop that one. All right.
Maybe.
Hillary would be like, hey guys, you know, do you want to have a little like all expense paid vacation at your house this weekend?
Right.
You're looking kind of like ill about yourself. You look like a McAfee right now. You're looking like a McAfee.
Yeah. And Disney too. I mean, Disney was editing out their black actors from posters
Yes.
so
Yeah.
that China wouldn't, because China, the CCP is
Extremely
extremely racist.
yes.
Like doesn't even like people from separate parts of China racist, you know, let alone anybody from America that doesn't look like them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy, man.
No, that's some fascinating stuff too when you do talk about what, like, especially when you talk about like Disney, right? Here's where we get canceled. So
I
so
think we got canceled when you dead named me.
yeah, whenever I did Joshua. Joshua Weaver. Yeah, it's so Disney. I've recently watched one of their shows, a show about Disney. It's called The Imagineering or Imagineering. And it's actually really good. If you haven't watched it, do watch it. It's actually really great. And it talks about the beginnings and what Walt Disney himself, what he was doing and how he created it. And you, really, if you watch, when you watch it, you'll find out how incredibly patriotic he was. He was incredibly patriotic. And if
Yeah.
he were alive right now to see what happened to his company, he would shut it down. I don't doubt that. I would say he would fire everybody that is doing the crap they're doing. Almost, I would say almost everybody in Disney Entertainment, which is not the theme parks, it's not the Imagineers, it's the entertainment portion, the movies, the, you know, like everything they got involved with there.
Yeah. Well, everything entertainment is just it's garbage. I mean, I used to work in film. I used to work in the industry. I worked in what, I'm not going to get into that, but when I was in the industry, I was never more resentful, and it wasn't towards anything in specificity. It was just like a common resentfulness. And it was because it is such a toxic environment. I had one producer one time tell me that I would get more jobs if my ass was bigger. Yeah, like that kind of like bad news bears, kind of just like people being very, I hate using the word sexist because it's way overused, but like the dirty grandpa. Does that make sense?
I was going to ask, like, contextually, right? Because you'll have, like, if that were to be the same thing said by a female producer, right? Yeah. It may leave you going, well, screw you, but you may not have the same context on or cognition of polarization to it. But and I'm not questioning the experience you had necessarily, but interested in the context.
Yeah. So it was a guy. It was an older gentleman. I mean, he wasn't very much older. He was probably 10 or 15 years older than me, I guess, at the time. And I was freshly 21. So I was still relatively young, old enough to handle myself. I mean, I've constantly like got some sort of like thing on me to protect myself. And like, it wasn't necessarily something that in the moment was like, oh, it was something that like I thought about later and I was like, that was kind of messed up. And it was like, so how do I get better? Like, what do I need to do to like build myself up in the industry? Cause I'm very much about like, if I'm doing something, I want to be really good at it and I want to move as fast as I can. And I ended up like advancing my career. I went from being like a set PA to a set deck coordinator in like 2 years. Like, and that's a jump that not a lot of people make in that short of time. And so that was all done not by my body type, but by my like abilities and like just being like, yeah, you need that done. I'll do it 100% and I'll work late. But so I just was asking, I was like, hey, so what do you think would help me further my career? Cause it was like one of my first gigs and I was very much like, I want to do anything to impress anyone. And, you know, think back to being 21. You're stupid. You're very, I mean, I'm in my mid-20s and I'm an idiot, you know what I mean? And so like, you're a very impressionable individual at that age. And so anything that somebody says to you that seems remotely like it's going to help you in any way, you're like, yeah, maybe that will help. And so I took that to heart and I was like, you know what, maybe I do need to look a certain way to kind of start doing this. And I was never really body positive for a long time. Like growing up, I just had a lot of issues with that kind of thing. And then I got older and I was just like, you know what, I don't care what anybody thinks. Also, I'm married now, so who really cares? Right. And so like contextually, it was just like, how do I get better at my job? And their only response was, you need to look a certain way and you're going to get more jobs. So
and you weren't
it was weird.
The camera, you were behind the camera.
I was behind the camera. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That does come across as being a bit more of an issue.
It's weird, right?
The camera, it's kind of like, you know, a visual projection of what people are looking to kind of fantasize themselves into.
Totally understand that. And I did some background work also. And I mean, if you're doing background work, you don't really have to look a certain way. You could be Joe Schmo at 500 pounds and you're fine. But this was like background work. And so I was like in an office. I'm not sure how my rear end is going to really promote me in my career. But on that same note, I worked with Marilyn Manson.
Really?
On the show. Yes. Yeah, I did.
An interesting guy from what I see.
So what I tell people is he is a 13-year-old boy trapped in a rich man's body. And that is how he conducts himself. And that's how he treats others. And he's very like snippy and short and just not so nice of an individual to talk to. But I was 20, like 19 turned 20 on the show that I worked on with him. And so still very impressionable, still very young. And when all this stuff recently started coming out about him, like the allegations against him, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want anybody's lawyers coming after me. When all that stuff started coming out, I was like, oh, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. He used to invite younger girls to parties, like hot tub parties at his hotel, like younger background actor girls. And it was like a very specific type of female that he would invite. So like the ugly girls that he would have deemed unattractive, or the girls who didn't look like they were 19 or 20 years old, he would just sort of like write off and he would invite them to parties. And he actually invited me to a few parties. And I was just like, no, I'm okay.
Right.
I'm good. I'm all right. I don't want to get sex trafficked.
You say get sex trafficked?
I don't want to get sex trafficked.
To play devil's advocate a little bit, not to defend necessarily him as an individual, but for me, the way that I've seen a lot of celebrities, because they do have a power over non-celebrities.
Yes.
Right. And they have this kind of, it's not always a well-earned clout, right? Like this rapport, right? A lot of times, like have you ever heard, don't meet your author, like your favorite author, don't meet them? You ever heard that?
Because they'll ruin everything.
Right. Well, yeah, because the reality of it is that when you read it, just as an example, so it bridges back over to play the devil's advocate on this, is when you read something, like I've met one of my favorite authors, but I'm a bit more open-minded and insightful than I would say maybe the average person, but maybe that's my narcissism pleading.
Fiction or nonfiction?
He's nonfiction.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a mentor, one of my early mentors. I studied a lot of his work. I took a lot of his courses. I've got a lot of his certified certifications and things like that too. And when
Yeah.
I met him, so what I realized before I met him is I was just kind of like going over it because I saw that quote, or that, it's not really a quote, but the statement, don't meet your favorite author, it'll ruin them, it'll ruin it, right? So I'm like, why would that be the case? And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going through all kinds of different places in my life when I'm reading the work of my favorite author.
Right.
And I'm reading it as if, and I'm not doing it like I have some sort of mental disorder where I'm attaching relationships to somebody that's not there, but you kind of do that. You know, you may read a book and then say, okay, whatever, but you don't think about the author, you think about the characters written about in the book, right?
Yeah.
But if you follow their work, you're thinking about the author, not just what they write about. So you're creating a potential relationship with that person.
Right.
So you go through all of these different things and you're like, you know what? If with this situation I'm going through, my mentor would absolutely get me and would be like, Chad, you're right. You're absolutely in the right position here.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because they're not there to give you any feedback, but you think they are because
You
they wrote
see,
something,
yes,
right?
because you've made this fictive person that's like working for them.
Yes. But people typically don't think about that. So what they do is they say, well, I met this celebrity once and I hate them because of this behavior. Not saying that about you and Manson, right? Not saying
I worked with them for a few months.
Yeah. So you had time, right? It wasn't like one interaction. Now there's people that meet like Tom Cruise one time and the rest of their life, they tell them that he is the way that they experienced him that one time. I personally did meet Mark Wahlberg once. And I'll tell you this, that one interaction was incredibly pleasant, playful. And one of those things is like, that just seems like an amazing human being. I've met Hulk Hogan or Terry, or whatever, I forget his last name now. But I've met him as well several times. And with Hogan, he also conducts himself in a way that he knows how to be a good celebrity.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't make anybody feel like an asshole.
Right. Well, because he's sort of like, he was like a roots brought up kind of guy too, wasn't he? Like he was not rooted in the industry. He kind of like made himself.
He made himself in that. Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, nobody put him. Like, he just happened to get in with wrestling, and that's where he created his fame because he just stayed with it, worked hard. But so the reason why I'm using that is because what happens is, like, we'll say for like Marilyn Manson's position here, he'll have people that listen to his music because that's where he like cut his teeth into to any celebrity level.
Yeah.
And the people that are like listening to his music, and a lot of this stuff is very emotional. You know, the emo.
Well, he's a very emotional individual. Yes.
I wrote the way like why he writes the way he does.
I just don't think he has a control on his emotions.
Right. Well, think about it. If you're rewarded because you're emotional, because it's giving you more money than most people will make in their life, more money than some families will ever make with the whole family combined, right? And then you got like, well, now you're being told you should be emotional because you're being rewarded by it. Maybe not directly told you should be emotional, but they're telling you because you cash your check, you know, that says there's $15 million it tells me.
$15 million is a pretty good incentive, I feel like.
Yeah, right. And then you've got people that are like just starstruck over him. Like, oh my God. And I can't believe I met this person. And they take all of that background of who they believe that person is and the way they would interact with them through every moment of different emotions they've gone through and different experiences. And then all of a sudden it all culminates. And then they're like, oh my God, and they throw themselves at the person. Or, you know, but what does that do to the person that that's being thrown, like Marilyn Manson getting people thrown at him? It's going to make him kind of reinforce it to make his reality more that thing. Yeah. And to me, it's kind of a sad story. It's almost a Greek tragedy.
It really is. It's a delusion of grandeur. Like in its purest form. That's what it is. And like these people who like idolize him and look to him. And so for me personally, like, my interactions with him were very short, sweet, to the point. He would try to, I actually have text messages on my phone still from him because people don't believe me that I've met him and stuff, like got them still on my phone. But like you make these interactions short and sweet. And something about, I think part of the reason why he found himself so interested in just especially talking to me, because there were several instances where he actually made his assistant quit. He like made her cry and leave set because of how awful he was, just awful to her all the time. But this one specific day in particular, and when that happened, I was still a set PA. And so he was like, I want her, because we'd had a couple conversations before. But those conversations, I didn't act like I cared who he was.
Right.
I've just always been the kind of person who was just like, oh, you're so-and-so, that's great. I don't see how you're any better than me as a person.
Yeah.
But that's how I was raised. You know what I mean? Like I was just raised as like, they're celebrities. They make more money than you, but that's about the only difference. Like there's like really nothing else that's separating you from them. And so I don't think he liked not having that like idolatry of delusion of grandeur in a sense, because he was like, okay, I want to be friends with this person. I want to make this person like me. And it was kind of fun. That's why I say he's like a 13-year-old boy, because you've seen like middle schoolers, right? How they act when they like somebody. They're very like negative, and they're like kind of annoying about how they're like trying to get their attention and that kind of stuff. And I don't think by any means I'm like some great person, but like it was just the reaction to not caring. You know what I mean? That these people do, they do care that you don't care. It's wild. It's wild.
But it's like this perplexing thing, because they do care because they don't get treated that way. And when somebody treats them that way, it turns it on end. Like there's dating coaches that tell you that if it's a very attractive girl, treat her bad and she'll be
I've heard that.
And then when people try it and then they realize that there is some truth to it, not 100% of the time, but there is some truth to it, it makes somebody seem different than everyone else.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's why during the pandemic, we saw all these celebrities coming out acting so nuts, like just like making these crazy videos and like trying to get like, look at me, because the attention was not on them for like so long. Who's writing hit pieces about somebody in their house eating ice cream? No one. Even
then,
some people, I guess. But
what was that? Elizabeth Warren even wasn't
Pelosi.
It was Pelosi. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I'm everybody average. Look at this $80,000
chocolate chunk.
Yeah, chocolate chunk that my servant. I mean, I'm sorry, my assistant went off because I had.
She makes my skin hurt. She looks like I should be nice, but she kind of looks like a corpse.
I kind of got us worked into a different direction here, but it is fantastic. I've not known somebody who's ever met Marilyn Manson themselves. I did listen to some of his music in the 90s, but I was not a fanboy.
He was in he was what started the Satanic Panic.
Was he the start of it?
He was like him and what was that other band? Not Motorhead. That's a good band, by the way.
Well, Ozzy Osbourne was accused of it back in
Ozzy
84, I think.
Yeah, Ozzy was, but he was like the 90s
like
incarnation of Black Sabbath.
Iron Maiden.
And then when people started panicking again, it was because of
the
Manson.
resurgence after.
Like the 90s. Sorry.
Okay.
There was definitely like the.
I was about to say I'm a little older here. Okay, Justine. All right,
Black Sabbath.
Whatever you want to go by, Sigourney. Okay.
It's Josh.
Joshua Weaver. But he did reinvigorate it, because I remember seeing him. I believe it was on Maury, where they were like, well, you're responsible for the moral corruption. And he seemed so incredibly articulate.
He got blamed for the Columbine kids.
Idiot.
Which was like a whole other tangent to get off on. But that was that. Yeah. So it was interesting to meet him nonetheless. Like, it was just interesting to like, I'll show you a picture sometime of me and him together on set. But yeah, it was weird. I also met Cuba Gooding Jr., but that's another story.
Show me the money!
We were told not to be alone with him. The younger cast, like the younger cast and the younger PAs were told not to be alone with him.
Then you see him lining up outside the door going, I'm about to make that money. It's the Michael Jackson effect, right? They're oh my God, Michael Jackson's touching kids at Neverland Ranch.
He was framed.
Sending their freaking kids after. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe he did it. You sent your kid after the accusations. Anyway, all right, I got a gripe about that one.
Totally.
I know, I got to calm down a little bit. I'm starting to sound a little bit like
Despacio.
It's about like an InfoWars episode over here.
Okay, Alex.
It's the gay frogs.
The deep state cabal.
You know what's sad is like he's actually accurate a lot more than people give him credit for.
Okay, I am not. So you said Josh was like really into crypto and stuff. I'm not by any means like an expert on this kind of stuff, right? I was watching a Tim Pool episode. We brought him up a lot. I feel like this has just like been a free advertisement for his show. But I was watching. the Alex Jones episode that he was on with Michael Malice, which, by the way, Michael Malice is amazing troll. I absolutely love him. I think he's moderately wrong about politics because he believes in anarchy and I don't.
Oh God.
However, yeah, so he Alex Jones is on, Michael Malice is on, and while they're on together, they're talking about cryptocurrencies. Like somehow they get off on this tangent about cryptocurrencies or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, I'm curious, like what is this? You know what I mean? And
a podcast with tangents? Oh no, not on this one.
Sorry, I'm like dimming my brightness a little bit. The sun went down, so I look nuts. So this tangent that they go off on cryptocurrencies, they start talking about Ethereum. Now, I am by no means a giving advice and telling people what to do. I am not doing that. I'm not doing that. Don't come for me.
Thank you for the disclaimer. Everybody needs to do it every time and several times throughout when you're talking about it, so they don't clip it and then sue you.
Right. This is my personal like thing. So I hear they're talking about Ethereum. And I'm like, okay, what is this? I gotta figure this out, like what this is. Ethereum is not super popular at the time. I think it was about $400. So it was relatively expensive, right? I'm like, Sheldon, you know, Alex Jones has been right about a lot of stuff. Maybe we should just check this out. So we're like, okay, let's put $200 in. We've got $200 to spare, whatever. We can just throw it in. Let's put $200 in, see what happens. I think we ended up actually putting in about 300 or so. And then literally 2 days later, it's $550. 2 days later, just from the Alex Jones clip, $550. So I'm like, dude, we got to put more money into this. So we put the rest of the money in, we buy out a whole Ethereum coin or whatever. Look at where it's at now. I mean, we ended up slowly, like incrementally putting some in. So we've got, you know, a little bit, but it jumped to like, it was at $4,000 before the Bitcoin crash. And we put in like $500 total, you know? So I'm not saying Alex Jones is right about everything, but he was right about this.
Yeah. Well, it's something that I also think that you get the hit jobs on people that actually are talking about something. Now, it doesn't mean that 100% of what he says is true. No.
Yeah.
No one, not 100% of what anybody says is true. In my opinion, you could argue that all the way out because perspectives play roles. There's all kinds of stuff that comes into play that actually work against truth and create potential dishonesty.
And no one's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. But when it comes to him, there's a lot of stuff that he had to say that makes sense to why he's been blackballed. But they're saying he's blackballed because of him being insensitive to the Sandy Hook family, the kids of the Sandy Hook event. Right.
Yeah.
Predominantly, that was one of the big nails in the coffin for him. With the media won't let him let go. Right.
Well, that was the public nail on the coffin.
Yeah, exactly. I think the real nails were you're exposing things that you can't expose.
Well, it was the I don't know if we're even allowed to say it. So I'm at the P gate.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That was like a big. Yeah, well, that's what we call it.
Yeah.
the Watergate non-water.
Yeah. Hold the water. Yeah.
Hold the
Watergate, hold the water.
Yeah. Add some marinara sauce and cheese. Yeah, that was like the big main thing for him that kind of like really put his stuff underground. They said it was a Sandy Hook thing. They said it was like this other stuff. But once he started talking about that, and he started covering that, because then if you noticed around the same time, because I still remember listening to Alex Jones on the radio. Like I remember like when I moved here, I was like listening to Alex Jones podcast on my way here, because even if he's not right about everything, the guy's crazy and it's just a really pure form of entertainment. Yeah, entertainment. Pure form of entertainment. Geez, say that 10 times fast. And so he like the search results for that term were going up around the time that he was talking about it, and they had to shut that down because you got people like building like all these crazy 4chan boards and all this other stuff about it, and now who talks about it outside of it's a conspiracy, don't look at it, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff they bury in the news cycle.
Yeah.
So is it true that certain things are turning frogs gay? Actually, if you go into more modern news, you find out that they are seeing that some of the amphibians are procreating with each other and not actually, well, they're not really procreating with each other.
No, but they're mating.
Yeah, yes, they're finding alternative lifestyles with themselves. So yeah,
Someone needs to get Obama on the phone so they can get rights.
yeah. Well, Michael, I mean, Michelle Obama will be right there.
Oh my gosh. You know, out of all the conspiracy, I think I've told you this, out of all the conspiracy theories that there are online, that is the funniest one to me. It is just so absurd and yet mildly believable that it's just hilarious.
Yeah, I've seen a lump. That's all I'm saying. I've seen a lump and I go, I wish mine was like that. No, I'm kidding. By the way,
me
I don't
too.
Really, oh God, you wish Sheldon was?
No, mine.
Oh, that's right, Joshua. I'm sorry.
He's gonna hate me. He's never gonna want to do a show with me.
Oh no, he'll love you. So so just so that people know, I'm speaking in parody.
Yes.
I'm using satire.
This is all a jest.
I am like we mentioned Q earlier. I'm a fence sitter. I don't sit with
toast fence sitter.
I don't sit with my milk toast. I have my opinions. I'm not on the fence on everything, but there's certain times when I'm just like, you know what? It's like whenever something's published in the news, they're like, oh, well, Trump's going down on this one. I'm like, I'm not buying what they're selling yet.
Okay. Yeah,
here's what I want. I'm going to hear what they say through the news cycle. I'm going to wait till the information comes out. And then I'm going to come up with an educated understanding of what they just said, because I damn sure am not an emotional puppet for the media to manipulate. So I sit on the fence for certain things. And there's other things going, I've researched this. This is bullshit. I'm not on the fence on this one. I'm actually going to pick up the rocks you just threw and I'm going to build a nice little wall. And then I'm going to go sit on top of that.
Hey, you can't build walls. That's racist.
It's true. It's true. Unless it has to do with Cuba. We're going there. We're going to go there because we have to.
What a good segue.
Of work. And we got to get to it, right? So that everybody knows, Gigi over here, Justine, the woman of many names, Joshuette, whatever. She actually sent me a damn near a dossier of what we're going to go over.
It's during 9 pages.
Episode. And we have touched 1/20th of it.
We touched one link.
Yeah, I know. And
it's
Sheldon's
okay.
not happy about it.
No, he's fine. I think he's sleeping.
All right. So to everybody, we've tangent, because who the hell doesn't tangent anymore on these podcasts?
Yes, right.
Right. Especially whenever it's just Joshua and I, we go all over the damn place. We drive the bus around for a while and we pick up every subject we can. And fortunately, our subscribers do enjoy it. So we'll get back on track now that we've discussed Marilyn Manson.
Back on track. Sorry.
Alex Jones.
I have like a squirrel brain.
Yeah. Yes. Well, you know what? So do some of our listeners. They like it.
Apparently on TikTok, that would make me famous. So.
Well, no, you got to start off with like being really angry for no reason.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Make other people angry as soon as they watch it. If you can piss somebody off
feminism.
5 seconds, you'd be a sensation. Yeah. You will call me by my preferred choice of words.
How dare you, dead man?
Oh, did you just Greta us? You little Thornburg, you.
How dare you? How dare you?
How dare you make me millions of dollars?
I think Daft Punk was who it was. I think Daft Punk, somebody remixed her saying that into a song. I'll send it to you because it is really good. It's really funny.
I really hope it is Daft Punk though. Like a legit like big band.
Yeah. How sad is it that they're gone? Anyway, tangent. Sorry.
Yeah. Right? Look at that. Right. Bring it back. Bring it back. See, that's why I drink during the episodes. Yeah.
Just to calm yourself.
Little does everybody know, it's like 6:30 in the morning over here. No, I'm just
kidding. Right. Because we're in Greenland.
Yeah. All right. So now we can get back to the task at hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like the border crisis, right? So there's the Washington Post. I feel like everybody is watching this. probably knows how truthful the Washington Post is. I just pulled a
Bastion
little.
of Bezos. I mean, I'm sorry, truth. Bastion of truth. Bezos of truth. Why do I keep messing this up?
Well, it's so, okay, so I don't know if you've noticed this too. It's so hard to find articles like the ones that I sent over, especially because Google has they basically have a screen up, and you could test this yourself. People can go online and test this themselves. I use Brave browser personally because it protects your stuff, and you can also earn basic attention tokens just for using the browser. So you're basically getting paid. It's not a lot of Brave, BRAVE.com. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just a fan.
I use DuckDuckGo, and I'm not sponsored by them.
DuckDuckGo, guess who owns that?
Oh, come on.
It's your buddy.
My
Bill.
buddy?
Buddy
Gates
Bill.
does?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there was an article recently about.
Now I'm going to have to go get tested.
Brave browser is just a good old fashioned browser. They pay you in basic attention tokens. This is a form of cryptocurrency that you can convert via an app called Uphold into the cryptocurrency of your choice. So that's what I do. But yeah, it's a good for you listeners out there. Again, I am not a financial expert.
Yeah, nor is she affiliated directly with Brave. She just likes their product.
Yes, I just like their product.
So
but you can take
off the phone.
Yeah, get them off the phone. But if you take and you search like border crisis, Biden, that kind of thing, you're going to get significantly different results from Google than you would from Brave, or you even would from Ecosia, I think is also owned by Gates. Yeah, his fingers are in everything, man. But yeah, so I found this on a website called the Western Journal. It is very much right-leaning. If you want to fact check it, there are other websites outside of Snopes that I would recommend you using, because Snopes is
if you use Snopes to fact check, you're doing the same level of fact checking as Facebook. If
you use Snopes to fact check, you probably also watch CNN.
Yeah, or you swear by what you hear on there is true.
Right, yeah. So Washington Post, the article is titled "Washington Post Tries to Hide It, but Poll Shows Border Crisis is Hurting Biden Badly." So they polled people from both parties, so Democrats as well. It says a story published Sunday is published entirely through the prism of the pandemic and politics, with the headline post-ABC poll, Biden earns high marks for handling the pandemic, but many Republicans resist vaccination. So that's from the Washington Post. That's like, to let you know, that's what their headline for this article was. That's what we're up against, basically. So it gives context around it. So it talks about how they give him credit for basically Operation Warp Speed and, getting the vaccine out and all that kind of stuff. But it also talks about how, go ahead.
Gives who credit for that?
Gives Biden credit for Operation Warp Speed. So Trump's policy giving credit to Biden. Shocker.
And that's the Washington Post.
Yeah, that's WAPO. But in this article, it does say that one low mark for the president comes from an issue on immigration at the U.S.-Mexico border, where 33% of Americans say they approve of how he is handling the issue amid a surge of migrants attempting to cross into the country. This is from the Washington Post, so they're reporting on this also. A slight majority, 51% say they disapprove, including 90% of Republicans. 90% of Republicans. That's crazy, but I believe it. 16% say they have no opinion. Among fellow Democrats, a tepid 63% majority approve of Biden's handling of immigration. And honestly, if I had to guess, the number is probably actually smaller. But in the same way that people were polled and they were like, oh, I'm not going to vote for Trump, I'm going to vote for Biden. I think that it's probably similar. People just wanting to not get yelled at by the Washington Post.
Right. Yeah.
But 15% disapprove, and the rest offered no opinion. Political independents split on Biden's overall performance, with a 45% approving and 43% disapproving, while 56% of independents approve of Biden's handling of the pandemic. Half as many approve of his handling of immigration at the southern border. So half of 56 half of those people approve of how he's handling the border. So that just gives you like where regular Americans are at. I'm sure your listeners are probably in that 90% category.
Yeah, I will assert that all of my listeners. Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, that was something that, they're even asking people, and let alone that, but the Washington Post was even brave enough to report on. Like, that's credit where credit is due, at least they're.
Yeah, but it's also kind of like, for me, I look at it this way. You look at big legacy media, all but Fox is left. Fox,
to a degree, I would argue most of Fox is also left.
No, I was about to say, the reason why I say, like, I was going to actually pick on Fox for a minute, is that I don't like Fox. I like Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, I don't like
to
Fox
a good degree, not as absolute.
I think Sean Hannity is also kind of not so great.
Yeah,
I mean,
sometimes yes, but I'm more like Tucker. I don't even really pay that much attention to Sean Hannity.
Yeah.
I think he speaks in a way that's pleasant to the ears, at times, or the way that his cadence and things like that. But other than that, I'm really not that big of a fan. But I feel that really they're both part of the big evil. So yes. You got the left legacy media, which is every channel except for Fox that's mainstream. But they're all part of the same evil, which is as long as they can keep people squabbling amongst each other, the ultimate outcome would happen without people even paying attention to it. It's right. the Wizard of Oz curtain thing, right? Yeah. So anyway, so the reason why I say that also is that just because they reported it in a way that seemed like they were a little anti or a little against Biden, I'd say that they're actually exaggerating the positive and minimizing the negative.
Most definitely. I mean, the article starts with talking about how great he is for like pushing this vaccine. So it's insult sandwiches where you like compliment, insult, compliment, and so as people take the sandwich better, that is how they write their article. So even if they are giving you something negative, it's like so far down the article or somewhere in the middle that you're just going to scroll right over it, And that's why I go to like alternative news sources, because it is their job to sit and sift through the bowl. They're like the miners in the Old West, that they're just like taking the dirt and shifting out the gold nuggets.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, with this, they're actually just sifting out the nuggets of corn out of the shit.
Yes, basically. Yeah, so I also sent you a link to the poll if you wanted to link that and wherever you post. So that was interesting. I'm sure you heard about the Arizona, Texas border crisis and Ron DeSantis. Did you hear about that?
Sending people over.
Yeah. He's sending the National Guard. So I actually watched an interesting thing. What is the senator's name? He's on Tim Pool. I can't remember his name. I'll find it. So he basically came on Tim's website and is basically like, yeah, that's great that he's sending those people there, but Texas has their own National Guard, right?
Yeah, they have the Texas Rangers, National Guard. They've got a bit of law enforcement over there to help.
Huge. Why is everyone not there at the border? Why are only a few of them at the border? Why isn't Texas actively sending National Guard members? Not that I'm advocating by any means for hurting innocent people, but the amount of sex trafficking that is being done, the amount of people that are cartels that are coming over from like the migrant smuggling kingpin is among Border's 10 most wanted criminals. You know what kingpins are, right?
Oh yeah.
It's the top dude. It's dude. The guy. I mean, it's
if
so
you
bad.
get all the way to the top dude, Hunter Biden will introduce you to him for a fee.
Satire again. Don't sue
us.
You
gotta buy some art though.
Bro, that is like a whole other thing, the whole other tangent in itself. I found
it's satire. Wink, wink.
I found a really great talk radio station you should check out. It's 93.7, something like that. I found it on accident. It's like shuffled in between stations. It's like some guy in his garage who like interviews people. It's probably a little more produced than that, but it's basically what it feels like. And they were talking about the Hunter Biden thing and just how like, Hunter Biden's art show. You want to come to Hunter's art show where no one knows who the donors are?
Yeah.
He was like,
and when you do pay for it, all you have to do is pay for it in crack Parmesan or whatever. And then you don't even have to hand it to him. You throw it in the carpet. He likes to actually, it's like the enrichment pools that you get for dog treats.
Yes.
Where you like they have to dig through it and stuff. That's like it's an enrichment tool for hunters.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But he even says, he was like, credit where credit is due to the Clintons. At least when Bill was hiring, like taking all this money to become a speaker at things, they like named who was paying him.
Right. Yeah. But no. It was Trump that was running an international crime organization, right?
Yeah.
Fucking idiots in the world, man. I swear.
His son is obviously the worst thing that's happened to America. So yeah, I don't know if you heard about the border. What they've got going on now is they have bracelets that these cartel are using as identifiers. And so you get like a different color, like think like an amusement park bracelet, or like you go to like a bar and you're not 21. Those are little bracelets that they put on your wrist. They have those in different colors to identify you to cartel members, to know whose cartel you paid to get into the US. That's nuts. Like that's actually crazy. And this is actually from Yahoo News. So people don't think that I'm just a biased, crazy person using only sites that are like right-wing and not mainstream. This is from Yahoo News.
That Yahoo is right, you are wrong.
Yeah, right. I actually watched this video earlier. I was kind of at work, so I was like in the middle of something while I was watching it. But Border Patrol chief, cartels recruiting American teenagers to smuggle migrants across the border. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's insane.
Do you know why?
No.
Because a 16-year-old committing a felony like this is going to be in prison until they're 18, whereas an adult is not. And so they pay this kid, here, you're from a lower income family, you're from a poor community, here's 20 grand if you smuggle these 10 people across the border. And most of the time it's not what they were saying, what Yahoo was saying is it's not even 20 grand, it's like $1,000. Here's $1,000 for like 2 people, take them across the border. If you get caught, that's on you. So these are not good people.
No. And also it's like, so we're going to get into the Cuban issue in a second, but more incentive. Who else could be incentivized? Now, this is just a hypothetical. This is not a direct accusation. This is the case, but who else could be incentivized to continue to allow people to rush the borders and get through the border of Mexico?
Clearly children.
The United States. Right. So who else could be the ones that are saying, okay, well, like I'm not even going to go down there to see it. And when I do, I'm going to swing by the Senior Frogs in North area. And we'll say that, you know what, I had a couple of drinks. I laughed like a hyena. And so I went to the border, and or I'm just going to have her go take it over because that's her job now. To me, that they're so quick to defend all of these people that are coming over. We're in this pandemic, right? That we're like, well, we need to stop the spread, but we have people that are not even health vetted coming over the border that are bringing in conditions from third world countries that
not even
we ourselves are susceptible to. And we're letting people that are tested positive into the state of Texas after the state of Texas says we're going back to business as usual. Right. So Abbott is not.
And then are shocked when cases are going up in Texas. And they're like, oh, it's because of Abbott's policies. It's like, are you crazy? Are you absolutely nuts? But not only that, they're smuggling
fully stupid.
They're smuggling fentanyl across the border. What's her name? That gremlin, the one that talks like she's always got food in her mouth, the one that was in the streets, and she was like, if you guys don't if they don't convict him, we're right. Maxine Waters. Oh,
yep, I got a little audio excerpt for her.
What a demented individual. She's siphoning money from her constituents and then upheaving the justice process. You know, the justice statue with the weights and measures and the sword, and she's got what around her eyes?
Blindfold, baby.
Because
she's
justice
into some
is supposed
stuff.
to be fun.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that? She's into some shit.
She's into sword play, blind sword play.
I swiped right on that one. My kind of girl. You throw it on, baby. Put on that blindfold.
I'm gonna tell your girlfriend that you're cheating on her with Justice.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but he's in bed with Justice.
I am all up in some Justice. I mean, there is no whole bars there. Okay. But all right, so I digressed away from all of this, but
yeah.
So the border, yes, the fentanyl's coming through, sex trafficking's coming through. There are people
using our teenagers.
Yeah, and using our teenagers that are desperate, are most vulnerable, using them for their own means. We have people that are agreeing to pay the cartel to get in the United States so that they can start a life here, only to find out once they're here, they get loaded up and brought to these houses that people are being stored in that are being directed for sex trade.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad. Well, I'm not glad because it's horrendous that that's even a thing that had to come out of your mouth, but that is something that they're doing. So they're taking these, I think they're like safe houses is what they're supposed to be. Technically, they're like shelters, and they're turning them into like drug dens and like sex trafficking hubs, basically, that these poor people who were told, come to the border, we have asylum for you, come see us, come, we have arms open, who believe this absolute lie that these people were telling them, are now being housed. And I'm sure, have you ever seen a drug den? Even photos on the internet or anything?
It was in like the end of the Jack the Ripper movie with Johnny Depp. And he's like, I'm just gonna go do some opium at the end of this movie.
So think that, right? Only worse. The floors are covered in pee and feces, and there's blood, open wounds around these things. There's opium needles, not opium needles. There's like needles that people are using to like shoot up drugs. There's like little kids running barefoot all around this stuff. That's what these are like, and that's what these have been turned into, because it is completely unregulated, because there was no way to regulate it, because they're not sending the people that they need to send down there.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've read about that happens whenever it comes to getting people into the sex trade, sex trafficking, is once they've kidnapped the person, they get them addicted to specific drugs that are like opium, that they like heroin, that you need a fix, and you will go against your own interest to get a fix. So once you're addicted, you're now enslaved to the person that's actually the providing the drug to you. And it just doesn't take as long to get somebody to accept their fate, which is sad. For the liberals that are out there, that because predominantly the people that are against where we're at with this are going to be predominantly liberals and progressives, and not all liberals. I know plenty of liberals that are not going to be that way, but the more left liberal to progressive. They have to stop being so piously, ignorantly driven into this sense of justice that they're right about everything, and just completely led, because they are becoming the thing they say they stand for. They're becoming their complaint, it's like politics. Anytime somebody says something in politics, they stand for whatever. That's usually what they're going to do is the opposite. I stand against child abuse, and then you find out that's
they're doing it because they're not just drugging 25-year-old strippers. They're not just drugging girl like 18 and older. They're drugging children. They're drugging like little kids, like 5 and 6-year-olds, right? I'm sure everybody watching has met a 5 or 6-year-old in their lifetime. They're already pretty suggestible. Hooking them on opiates at a very young age, and then selling them for whatever demented purpose the buyer is going to use. Which brings me to, I didn't link this because I couldn't find it until later. I actually sent it to you.
That's all right. Video. We can put a lot of these links in the description for this video when it's published.
Okay, cool. So this is from Daily Mail. I'm going to give a disclaimer because Daily Mail is not, it used to just be a tabloid article, and now they're like reporting on things that like the New York Post is reporting on also. So I don't really know where they sit anymore, but they're like one of the only people that I could find. And I searched for like a good 45 minutes trying to find this article. Video shows Biden administration secretly flying migrant children into Tennessee while Republican reps urges Congress to pull Kamala's travel funds until she visits the border. This is from May 20th of this year. Tennessee lawmakers claim Joe Biden is secretly sending migrants to their state in the dead of night. There's like photos of this in this article, so you can link it below. Basically,
I'll guarantee you that I would not be surprised. I guarantee would not be surprised if he's sending these individuals into the states that he wants to turn blue.
I wouldn't either, but this is human trafficking.
Absolutely is.
Like
Absolutely.
this is human
This
trafficking.
is not altruism. This is not altruistic.
No,
this
you're
is
smuggling people.
Criminals.
But not even that. What are these lives that these people are going to? Do you think that they're good ones?
No, they're not going to be good lives.
No.
If they're lucky, they may end up on, in the social system's welfare, or maybe they'll get a job that gets them outside of welfare.
Maybe.
If they're lucky.
If they're lucky. And it's kids. It's not like adults and children. It's like kids. And so they're sending these people there, I'm sure, with a plane ticket. I'm sure with, maybe $1,000 cash, saying, figure it out. That's nuts. Yeah. But where are you never going to see this?
Yeah,
anywhere.
You won't see it on any mainstream media.
Anywhere. Not even Fox is talking about this.
No. Well, that's why I say Fox is part of the problem.
Right. That's nuts. This in early 2000s, right? Think of like right after all of the 9/11 stuff and like the Wall Street, like in between that time of Occupy Wall Street and right after 9/11. This would have been front page news. Mm-hmm. Even in the 80s, this would have been front page news.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But as far back as recently as the Wall Street stuff, this would have been mainstream news. And now, because people are so deluded, because Donald Trump ran full force like the Kool-Aid man and busted through the RNC's walls somehow, unchecked, this is not mainstream news because it doesn't divide people. Everybody would be united that this is a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't work on the division narrative.
Yeah.
And if it actually makes Democrats look worse, because they're predominantly the ones supporting it. I don't know any Republicans supporting the immigration values. Like, they support legal immigration going through the vetted process.
I do.
But also, so add the perfect storm. We have people that are coming into the country, they're child trafficking. They're moving people, sex trafficked as well. Well, not necessarily the United States, but they're still getting sex trafficked people into this country because of the border being as open as it is. And they're fighting with HR 1, which is for voters' rights, which means that they're trying to keep you from having to show identification to vote. So
because it's racist.
Well, yeah, because the ultimate sin of America, the racist, right? So yeah, the sin you cannot abolish. You cannot repent for it. Right. Unless you just hand the whole country over and let them do whatever they want with it. That's the only way you can clean yourself of that sin. And even then, you're going to have a debt you got to pay back anyway, no matter what. Anyway, all that aside.
Yeah. Tangents.
So we have the people that are coming through the borders in Texas and Arizona are predominantly going to vote blue if they can vote, because they're coming here by way of the promise of the liberals or the Democrats, right? The Democrat promise. They're coming here by that direction. Now, the ones that typically go through the legal vetting process where they have to actually earn citizenship are more, there's about I don't remember exactly what the statistics are on this or the percentage, but it's higher that they become Republican than if they didn't have to go through that vetting process.
Do you know why?
You don't need to have, because you actually have value for the country that you're any
other.
Well,
and not only that, but you're not going to go through the proper screening process if you're selling children and also selling drugs.
Yep. Oh yeah, we need laxed criminal laws, not strict ones. So we have all that going on. These people are more likely statistically to vote Democrat, and Democrats say no, voter identification, that's racist. They need more time. Mail-in votes are good. All this, and we're going to federalize the elections through every state, so the states don't have say-so in their elections. That is what HR 1 is. But the big
well, they also want to lower the voting age.
yeah, 16.
Have you met a 16-year-old recently?
Oh, I've known several.
I'm so
TikTok.
sorry to anyone, and so sorry to anyone with a 16-year-old. I'm so sorry to any 16-year-olds watching, but you guys are idiots.
Yeah, well, TikTok.
They're dumb.
We want to give people on TikTok, we want to take the mentality you see in that dumpster fire and say, you know what? You should have the right to vote on complex issues that you have no world experience to understand.
Oh,
you want to vote that everybody gets Pizza Hut and a PlayStation 5. Yeah. I got it. Republicans are going to give that to you.
I mean, I love that. I love that idea. I love PlayStations. Yeah. I'm more of an Xbox gal myself, but I would take a free PlayStation. At 16, I thought I was going to marry my high school boyfriend. You know what I didn't end up doing? Marrying that boyfriend.
You didn't? No. Oh my goodness. What happened to you?
My husband is like a few years older than me. So I married up.
I barely know you.
You know what I mean, though? Like 16-year-olds are barely good at like deciding whether or not peer pressure is okay in most situations. And I've met some very smart 16-year-olds, but as a whole, I honestly don't even think that I don't think 18 should be the voting age. I really don't. I understand why, because if you're going to serve your military, you should be allowed to have a say in it. However, if you're 18 and you're serving your military, I think that there could be a special pass for you to vote. Mm-hmm. But most 18-year-olds, I don't think are going to. Again, at 18, I was walking around. Oh, sorry. Am I too loud?
Sorry. We're good. Sorry. I a little. Yeah, it was the NSA.
Oh, geez. Yeah. They're like, hey, quit it. She's on the watch list.
We're coming for you.
But 18, I'm walking around with like down with capitalism flags. You know what I mean? And luckily I didn't vote because I probably would have like voted.
Smash the capital, smash and destroy capitalism.
Yeah. Down with capitalists. Yeah.
Why the hell do they have such a struggle with that? 3 beers in? Is that what it is?
To be honest, I'm not a huge, I think that there's a lot of issues with capitalism. Like really, truly, I think that there are. And I think that in a perfect society, capitalism works when everybody has good moral values and not everybody does. I mean, Bezos, for example, is a good reason of why capitalism is not so great sometimes. But overall, what is your alternative? You know what I mean? Socialism doesn't work in every country it's been to. Communism doesn't work in every country.
Not a single country.
Not a single one. Cuba.
Not a single one. Yep. Good segue.
I'm so natural.
Yeah, you are.
I really am Josh.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yep. And the crypto Q and now.
So Bitcoin.
Yeah. No, he doesn't usually talk about Bitcoin.
No.
Sometimes, but no. Anyway, all right. So Cuba.
Anyway, Cuba. Yeah, I'll let you take the lead on this one because I know not a whole lot about it, honestly, other than like they're not rioting over vaccines. Guys, if you have been told that by anyone that you care about, I would kindly ask you to give them an ice bath and wake them up.
Yes, please. I'm not saying give them a bitch slap too, but if you have to,
if they're in the bath and you try to reach them and it accidentally.
Yeah, until they finally go, well, I'm wrong. So the mainstream media immediately put out that hundreds of people took to the streets in Cuba because of a lack of medications.
Which
reality.
Yes.
Well, what does send people into riots, right? Is lack of food, lack of medication, 2 life-saving values.
Lack of not having sustainability.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that'll get people to go to the streets. It wasn't hundreds, it is thousands. They're locked down. They do not have access to the internet right now.
No.
No.
Which in and of itself is a tell that something is going on. Because if it was just vaccines, do you really think they're going to shut down the internet for that?
Yeah. No. And then what is the majority of the media? It's the big legacy media, the mainstream media portions. They're reporting that it's not a big deal. The country's going to be okay. AOC comes out and says the reason why Cuba is falling apart right now is because the United States has stuff and we won't give it to them because of the embargoes that we have against them. We have embargoes against Cuba because they're a communist country, and we decided that we're not going to do trade with a communist country. So we put the embargoes in. Cuban cigars are illegal to have in the United States, and they're very expensive. You do have them. right? So, but that's part of the embargo, right? You're not allowed
I
to
mean,
have
Cuban cigars are good, but I
yeah,
digress.
except for the time you went to Cuba, Havana, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
So we have these absolute idiot politicians. Now, let me take it back. I don't think AOC is an idiot. I
she's
think
just
she's somebody
vapid.
bent on the idea that she wants to procure her position in politics for the rest of her life. She is not a one-term person, and she's doing what she can right now to build the popularity that she will never get taken out.
What do you think?
Because
She's mini Pelosi.
absolutely is.
Pelosi is decaying in office.
Right. Yeah, she is. Right. I think she
We
actually
need term
passed.
limits, damn it.
Yeah. I think Pelosi actually passed back whenever Walt Disney did. And they just managed to keep the animatronics working on her longer.
She's the it's a small world, but just her skin.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like the Crypt Keeper, but yes, I'm with you there. Yeah.
The haunted mansion came to life and spat her out.
So, but we have people like Nancy Pelosi, not Nancy Pelosi, I'm sure she's had things to say about this too. So AOC, or AOS, as I like to call her. So it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Alexandria Ocasio-Smollett. You name it, whichever, I don't care. But she's really upset that Juicy Smollett was actually got more fame than she did early on, and that he was first to market before she could do her famous "I was there and I need therapy."
Oh, or the border wall where she's just like,
oh yeah. Look at that parking lot at Walmart. I can't get to it because she was looking at a parking lot. It was not anybody. Anyway, all that shit aside, because she's a fucking liar. So she's wanting to procure her long-term position in politics. So she's going to say whatever fits the narrative that she's got people following, which given her popularity. Yeah. Unfortunately, politics isn't about your effectiveness. Politics is about your popularity.
Yes.
So with that, we have the lies from mainstream media saying that Cuba's gone, and having hundreds of people out there that are radicalists screaming things that are so anti-government, like freedom. Right?
Well, how dare you
waving the American flag, which is a sign of hate, apparently. You know,
well, because freedom is contradictory to their narrative that we are not free as a nation. Yeah. That is partially why this isn't being covered, because these people are screaming freedom with American flags, because to some parts of the world, there is still a semblance of hope that America is the free nation. But if we have that hope, if we think that we are the ideal, if we get any ounce of patriotism back, outside of the Republican circles who are flying MAGA flags and like American flags and stuff off their boats, if we get any semblance of that freedom and that patriotism back, we have a way to fight the machine. And part of the reason why the machine has not completely taken over yet is, have you heard the saying, dictators, the reason why you can't like mock dictators is because as soon as people like start mocking dictators, they no longer have their same power. Have you heard that?
It makes sense. I can't say that I've heard it, but it makes sense.
The meme revolution, the internet sensationalism of how absolutely stupid Biden is, how vapid AOC is why the machine hasn't completely taken over yet, because we are still able to laugh at these people. The problem is we're spending so much time laughing and we're spending so much time refuting their crap that we're not taking the time to actually build policies and culture for ourselves. And the reason why we're seeing this like anti-freedom narrative, to go on a little tangent, is because what part of culture have Republicans or conservatives built outside of like Christianity? What culture? Can you think of any? Not a lot.
I think the majority of them grind their horn down so they become hornless rhinos.
Well, yeah, but like Roseanne, right? Got taken down because Hollywood, the people who crank out the good stuff, who draw people in, right? I mean, that was part of MK Ultra too, was that they were the CIA and like the FBI and all those fantastic, wonderful organizations. My NSA agent. I'm not suicidal, I promise.
I got the tattoo.
All of those organizations realize that, whoever controls media controls the culture. And so there's no rival to Hollywood as far as like culture goes. There's not really any. You look at movies, you look at music, you look at all this great stuff. There's no real rival for it. And there is a huge starvation. There is a guttural starvation that people are having for that type of culture. So when you see people chanting freedom, 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 it is best to just squash it from their point of view, because that in and of itself is a culture.
Yeah, it truly is, right? Because it sparks new culture.
Yes.
It sparks opportunity.
Yes.
And in communism, you don't have opportunity. You have stagnation.
You have no individualism whatsoever. It's a collective.
Yeah. You know,
we joke about level hive mind, but it really is.
Yeah. Well, what I like to tell people is this. One of the main reasons has to do with a psychological and genetic factor of why socialism and communism will never work, is because we as a species likes to peacock. Why do we have so many luxury line of cars? Why do we have so many different options when it comes to the things that we purchase? Why do we have everything, right? But under communism,
bikinis and socialism, even.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, though, the idiocy of the people that buy into the drink the Kool-Aid for socialism and communism, what they do is they think, like? What's that?
What do they look like? That's like a big thing.
Well, yeah, but yes, that's another thing too, right? There's this amalgamation of like, it's hard to identify what you're looking at. Like overall, I don't mean gender. Yeah. I mean, a lot of values, it's hard to identify what that person is, right? Yeah. So, and then that aggravates them because they say they have no expression. It's like, yeah, you've created yourself into this glob of nothing, right? Or of too much expression. We can't tell what the fuck you're trying to say. But the point is, so you have people that right now, the people that support the idea, they will have, like, all you have to do is look at what they have, right? So let's say you live with your parents, but you drive a Lexus. You're not trying to make your own life. You're living with your parents and you're not even planning on it, right?
And your parents are probably financing the Lexus.
Right. But let's say we get into a socialistic or capital, or I'm sorry, God damn it, that's not that. A communistic, because we're in a capitalistic and I'm a big supporter of that. A communistic society, you're not going to have those options. You'll have brown shirt. You'll have a 1973 Yugo. You don't know what a Yugo is, by the way. You're going to want to look it up. It's an old car. It's a piece of shit.
Look it up. Yeah, a Bronco.
Yeah, no. Broncos were better than a Yugo.
Are they?
Oh yeah, that's a car from way back.
Right,
it didn't exist anymore for a damn good reason. But the point is that the reason why these things won't work is because we like to identify ourselves in ways that make us stand out, and you can't do that in a socialistic or communistic culture. So, all right.
Well, just one more point. Everybody thinks that socialism is predicated that everyone is equal. That's not the case. You think Nancy Pelosi is going to give up her chocolate chip to eat cicadas? Are you nuts?
Yeah. Or the millions of dollars she's made on insider trading?
You think she's going to give that out so some poor kid can try steak for the first time?
Yeah. Or Bernie Sanders is going to give up his 6 houses now? 5 or 6 houses, something like that.
I'm not. The billionaires are the problem.
Yeah. It used to be the billionaires were the problem. But then I became a billionaire. It was not the billionaires. It's the billionaires. Read my lips. I need more money.
Once again, I'm asking you. You got to get better at your Bernie. You can't get you winded.
I actually started to go the Arnold route, and then it
was very German.
Well, I mean, he likes Russia, so it's close.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So what's going on in Cuba right now? You have people that do not have firearms. They are being beaten in the streets. It's called, the hashtag is SOS Cuba. Cuba's in a crisis. They're going through a revolution right now.
Yep.
They have had the internet shut off, so they cannot communicate with the outside world, so the outside world cannot know what's going on. Biden's already said they are not going to interfere. They are not going to have anything to do with it. They're not going to go to the rescue. They are not even going to give asylum to the people leaving Cuba that are being attacked by their government right now, trying to get away from the country. They're not going to give them asylum. The absolute hypocrisy in this is that we're shutting down any asylum seekers from Cuba who are truly trying to get away from a a totalitarian government that is bent on destroying them if they step out of line. And then we're going to open up our borders in freaking Texas and
Arizona, yeah,
to allow people in. It's more like whose palms have gotten greased is the first thing.
Well, and whoever's coming into California also, because they're not reporting on it, but I am sure that there are people coming into California.
Yeah. And then the risk of public safety, where you've got the vehicle full of people that ran into a Mack truck and they killed a bunch of people out of California.
There's so this was one of the things with the border too, that like, I'll just read it's from the Gateway Pundit, which if your readers don't read the Gateway Pundit, then they need to, because it's actual news. It's good. I fully support it. Listen to Chad. He's smarter than me.
Wait, who, me? Different Chad. She's talking about another Chad.
Oh, I meant Thad.
Yeah. A CAD? Oh, I know that.
Mad? Mad?
CAD. KHAD.
Listen to this guy. Anyway, 2-year-old migrant child, all right? Biden's open borders, 2-year-old migrant child dropped off on Mexican highway next to corpse.
Next to corpse.
A 2-year-old migrant child was discovered by police after he was dropped off on a Mexican highway on his way to the U.S. The child was found next to the corpse of a man who died in an overcrowded trailer on their way to the U.S. Because part of how they smuggle people in is in trailers.
Yeah, through Mack truck or semis.
Yeah, that's what made me think of it. This is a common practice by coyotes and cartels, which coyotes are like the smugglers, like the human smugglers. For those that
they're the Wile E. Coyote from Looney Tunes, because that's what the left had their fun whenever Trump called the coyotes, because the left are fucking stupid.
Yeah, they're not the brightest cans of worms. So this is a common practice by coyotes and cartels who are taking advantage of Joe Biden's open border policy. The U.S. has apprehended over a million illegals this year entering the U.S. This was written, let me find out when this was written. I don't think too long ago. I'm not seeing a date on here. We'll fact check that later. So this year, and that's just the number that they caught, not including the dangerous migrants who are avoiding the police. This is a common way to be smuggled across Mexico in the back of a freight truck, packed together with others, often in danger from dying of dehydration and suffocation, because they're not like, it's not like a cozy, like, oh, you guys, here's your corner, here's for the kids. It is like sardine packed inside of these things. And if you've ever been in like a moving trailer to move for your house,
metal box,
that hot, stinky, wooden,
no wind flow,
no windows, nothing.
Just the California heat
and visceral stinky sweat. Like that's basically all it is. The Mexican immigration authorities and federal police do detain and deport would-be illegal immigrants if they do not have the proper documents. This is why they have to pay thousands of dollars in fees and take loans from the cartel to be smuggled across. It just goes on to talk about how the parents should be charged with child endangerment. But like this 2-year-old, they have a picture and like his face is blurred out, but this kid is like malnourished is like a positive word to give this child. He's surrounded by trash. You can see the dead body of the man in the photo. So if your viewers, if you click on this link, just know that you're going to see that. This is what's happening. This is what's happening right under our noses. They are bringing people in who, I'm sure that guy, probably not a bad dude, probably just was like, you know what, I could find a better life for my family. I could send money back to my family. That 2-year-old, you think that 2-year-old did anything to warrant this? Probably not. In fact, I would say definitely not. And they're turning away Cuban.
Orphaned now.
Probably orphaned, most likely, because who knows if that's even his dad? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, who knows where his parents are? And they're also using children, like they're taking single children, and if you're a family, right, and you and your wife have 3 kids, they will leave you with 1 child and take your other 2 children and give them to two people who don't have kids, just so they'll let them into the border. And there's no guarantee.
Reunite them, right?
There's no guarantee. They're doing all of this and they won't let Cuban migrants in. And I can guarantee you, Florida's not mad about having Cubans here. Like, it's a huge part of the culture, like for Florida. And they're turning them away because it's not fitting their agenda.
Right.
Do
Well,
you
the
see how
federal-
crazy that sounds?
Well, the federal government is turning them away. The state of Florida is not turning them away.
Right, right.
So yeah, but the federal government has said that they're not going to accept any of them.
That's what I mean.
Now, the state of Florida and the Coast Guard will likely not
They're like,
interfere while they come in. Right. So, and the amnesty programs that we've had in the past, like you touched the Sanjur refugee, they may try to revoke that on a federal level, but on the state level, there's a pretty good chance that DeSantis is going to, if he hasn't already continued that. But we'll see. We'll see what's happening.
so if they, this is a question just based on my ignorance. If they revoke it at the federal level for specifically for the Cubans, does that not also include the people coming from the Mexico-US border?
It would be specific, right?
The amnesty?
What they say, if they say that the Florida, like, so the Cubans are not fleeing a troubled government or a troubled environment, that they need safety. If they say that at the federal level, they just say it. It doesn't have to be true.
Well,
They have excluded them from the immigration portions because, like, otherwise, I mean, we could have people coming from, known terrorist countries and not taking the route of South America, which we do have some of those people coming through the border from those countries through South America, from and on the high end terrorist watch groups, and they're finding them coming through the border. So
there was a family. I'm not saying that they're terrorists or anything like that, but there was a family from like South Africa who flew into one of the South American countries. I don't think it was Mexico, but they like flew Guatemala, I think is what it was. Fly into Guatemala, travel up through Mexico and cut through the border because they're more likely to get in that way than they are to fly into the US and have to go through customs and become naturalized citizens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something is broken.
A different way. Oh, it's completely broken. Well, I wouldn't say it's broken. It's intentionally rigged.
Yeah. Well, it was like somebody walking up to your Lincoln log set and like breaking your favorite long brown piece. You know what I mean? Like that's what they've done here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then tell you to rebuild it later.
Yeah. Then like, okay, rebuild it. Go for it.
Every time you try to do it right now, they'll stop you. So here's another motive that I have for why they're actually going to reject people coming from Cuba. Cuban migrants are more likely to be Republican than they are to Democrats. Now, when it comes to South America coming through the border, they're more likely to vote Democrat.
Yeah.
So rigging the system. So multiple reasons for it. So, and what is it? BLMs came out in support of the Cuban government. AOC has come out in the support of the Cuban government, which is communist government. They're beating their people.
If that doesn't tell you anything you need to know.
Yeah. And if you don't have a friend from Cuba, go make one.
We've got several friends from Cuba, and you know what? I have nothing bad to say about any of them. And I have nothing bad to say about any of my friends who are immigrants, period, because they're just, there's not any way to generalize one group of people. There really isn't. There's bad people, like you were saying, there's bad people in every religion. There's good people in every religion. There's bad people in every culture, and there's good people in every culture. And unfortunately, the bad people in our culture are running our government right now.
Yeah. Well, there's good and bad as the human condition.
Yes.
And it doesn't.
All right, my computer is going to die.
Yeah. Well, we got to sum up it anyway. We could always do another one though, because you've got a lot of research and it's a cliffhanger for everybody, because you really got into it, and I applaud you for it. And it's how quick you came up with it. I don't know exactly how long or how much time you spent on it, but it's impressive. So,
an hour.
Yeah,
Not very long.
Well, now I feel really inept.
It's just it's our generational gap that we were talking about.
Yeah, it's the fact that I have failing eyesight and I'm in my later years.
It's all right. It's all right. Pop. Don't worry.
Yeah. Dare you? All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna finish up for now, but again, we can do another episode at another time as well, so we can come back and revisit this one. So, if you would tell Sheldon, I said, have a wonderful evening. I wish I was there to give him the uncomfortable stare before giving him a hug.
Because he's not wearing pants.
Oh, that would be uncomfortable. I paid the mortgage several different ways.
There you go. Yeah. I lived in New Orleans. I know what's up.
I forgot a lot of what I've ever done in my life after going to New Orleans.
I forgot third grade. It's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a year you can yeah, who needs punctuation?
Right.
All right. So, well, I appreciate you joining the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
A lot of fun, very informative, and you're very studious in your process. So,
and
and it doesn't hurt to have a relative of Sigourney Weaver on the show. So, by the way, that's actually not true.
Feel free to advertise it as such.
yeah, it's actually not true, but I was just going by one of the likeliness things. So, but until next time, I am your host, Sir Chad Everett Broshears, and I am joined with my wonderful host, our special guest this evening, Justine GG.
Joshua Weaver.
Yeah, Weaver. Yeah, Joshua.
Oh man, it was great talking to you guys.
Remember, we're in this together, so let's act like it. And again,
and one more thing before you sign off: do not blackpill yourself. There's always hope. Even Steve Bannon believes that there's hope, and I trust that guy more than I trust my mother sometimes. So,
oh snap! All right, I like it. Good. All right. Well, with that, we'll continue this at another time. So you guys enjoy, and if you haven't already subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, take that like button out to a nice little dinner, wine and dine it, bring it back home and do what you're supposed to do with the like button.
A nice cab.
Well, a nice cab. You give it a nice warm cab. All right, till next time, y'all. We'll catch you soon. Bye-bye.